Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
31 October 2001, a brisk gust of wind cut through Patricia's jacket as if it was nothing. It was a typical autumn day in England, cold and threatening to rain. The village she found herself in was quaint. It had an old-world charm to it but was far too remote to ever appeal to her. London was more of her place, always moving, always something happening, even more so when you had seen the things that she had seen. Her mother worked for UNIT, a secret organization that dealt with honest-to-goodness aliens. She had even met a couple. How many people could say that? A few children in costume stepped into her path. Maybe Halloween wasn't the best night to do this, she thought as she pulled her coat closer to her body. Maybe this wasn't a good idea at all. She was about to disrupt these people's lives, and for what? For all she knew, Sabrina was happy here. Was she really going to be selfish enough to try and take the girl away from a family that had raised her for the past 4 years? Yes, she was. It wasn't safe for Sabrina. People could use the girl to get to Patricia or Patricia's mother. Sabrina never should have been placed for adoption. If only her mother hadn't tried to cut Patricia out of her life. It had taken years to track down the little girl. The records were tightly sealed and buried. Whoever had done it was good. Patricia was one of the best at hacking computer systems, and she had had trouble. Taking a deep breath, the petite young brunette stepped up to the front door of the house and knocked loudly, confidently. There was no answer. Looking down at the piece of paper in her hand, she checked the address. It was correct. Perhaps the family was out trick-or-treating. She knocked again and waited. Still no one came. Perhaps tonight really had been a bad idea. She had just turned to go when she heard a noise from deep within the house. It was mechanical, like an engine sound. It was the sound of metal grinding on metal. A kind of V-warping. Okay, so that wasn't really a word, but there was just no other way to describe it. Then there was a rush of voices and footsteps coming upstairs. Patricia slipped into the shadows. A man's voice was audible. "I'm sorry, had to get the mask though. It makes the whole costume realistic and authentic." A woman's voice broke in. "You do know that we are the only ones who are going to really understand your get-up. Making us late for trick-or-treating so we could pop back to 1942 just so your costume is authentic." You could almost hear the eye roll as she said words that didn't make sense. "I'm sorry, but look at the time. Still plenty of time to get good candy, and if not, I'll treat everyone to these giant candy apples on Stecken. They're the size of your head. And besides, your costume is a period piece, and I didn't complain when you picked it up." "Okay, first you will have to take them to get one of those candy apples anyway now," the woman's laughing voice said. "Can't mention giant treats and then not deliver. And second, I picked my outfit up 3 months ago when we were in 1928, before we went to the Fitzgerald's party. Planning ahead means I don't have to make last-minute trips." The voices were closer now, coming towards the front door. In a panic, Patricia threw herself sideways and into the bushes. Her heart was pounding in her ears. She was about to see Sabrina. This is why she had come here. The front door opened with a bang and 4 people came out. The woman, presumably Rose Williams, come first. She was wearing a vintage 1920 flapper outfit, complete with a feather in her hair. The boy, Rory, followed. He was dressed in a futuristic spacesuit. According to what she had dug up, he was 12 and was their second child. There was no sign of the oldest son, Anthony, probably still at university. The man, James, came out next. He was wearing a 1940s-style suit and carried a gas mask under his arm. Slipping on the mask, he turned to the little girl behind him and asked, "Are you my mummy?" Patricia tried to stifle a gasp as she heard Sabrina giggle at some inside joke. There she was, just 9 years old, dressed as a purple fairy. Of course, Sabrina was nothing like the infant she remembered. Patricia had missed so much time with her, so much time with her little sister. Sabrina's hair was darker than Patricia had imagined, must have gotten that from her mother. The young girls were features similar to the ones that she possessed. The eyes were the same, both having inherited them from their father. Also the nose, it was their paternal grandmother's nose. Tonight was not the night to confront the happy family. Not the night to demand, now that she was of age, that Sabrina be given back to her real family. Patricia shifted to get a better look before she left. As she moved, her big toe on her left foot collided with something solid and painful. She was unable to hold in her groan of pain. James stopped and stared at the bushes. "Rose, take the kids and run ahead. I'll try and catch up later." He pointed at the shrubbery and she nodded. Patricia was about to dart around the back of the house when he spoke again. "I know you're there, so you might as well come out. Big night for practical jokes, but is egging the teacher's house really worth it? Small town, I'll find out who you are, so just come out." Knowing she was caught, she stood to her full height and stepped into his line of view. For a moment she caught a glint of recognition in his eyes. That was impossible, though they had never met. "Oh, hello," he said, sounding confused. "Sorry about that, thought you were one of my students. All Hallows Eve is a big night for the practical jokers around here. Still begs the question, what are you doing skulking around the side of my house at night? Great word, skulking. I'm James Williams, by the way." "And you are, waiting for you to let me speak," she thought to herself. Pulling out her wallet, she flashed a paper at him. "I'm Patricia Stalwart from Unit." "Well, Patricia," he said with a friendly smirk, "I'm not sure why you're really here, but the Unified Intelligence Task Force tends not to use psychic paper for their identifications. Care to try again?" Damn, this guy was good. She had found the wallet with the paper in the archives of Unit. She brought it with her to give herself credentials for this meeting, hoping that a little intimidation could help her get what she wanted. Hold on, how did he know about psychic paper? How did he know about Unit? What kind of family had adopted her baby sister? The only way she might get the answers to some of her questions was to answer some of his. "My name is Patricia Stalwart, you can call me Trisha. I'm a university student in London and my mother works for Unit." "And what brings you all the way to Leadworth on such a fine evening?" he asked with a cheeky grin. Squaring her shoulders, she said, "I'm here for my sister." "And who is your sister?" "Sabrina, I'm here to take her home with me." There it was, bomb dropped, now to see how he reacted. Would he kick her off his front step, have her arrested for threatening to kidnap his daughter? She braced herself for an angry reaction, most likely with yelling. What did happen was completely unexpected. He opened the front door. "Ah, well, in that case you'd better come in for a cup of tea. It's a little too cold out here to be chatting on the porch about such serious matters. Come on." He walked inside and she followed slowly. Once inside, he grabbed a big bowl of candy off the front table. Almost forgot. Casting a conspiratorial look at her, he grabbed a handful of candy out of the bowl and shoved them in his pocket. Next, he set the rest on the bench just outside the front door. "This way," he called and walked further into the house. She followed him through the door and into a well-lit kitchen. He gestured for her to sit down on a stool by the counter. James busied himself turning on the electric kettle and readying the teacups, not saying a single word. The silence was almost unbearable. It would have been better if he yelled instead of treating her hospitably. Finally, she had enough. "I tell you I'm here to take away your daughter and you make me tea." He set a mug, sugar and milk in front of her. "I tend to find that negotiations go better over tea. Care for biscuit?" asking as he held out a tin. "Plus you are under the assumption that you are playing an all-or-nothing game here, Trisha. That may or may not be the case." Moving to sit the kitchen table, he blew across his tea and took a sip. How could he be so calm while she was positively overcome with nerves? "Sabrina is my sister, Dr. Williams. She belongs with me, and now that I am of age, I wish to take her with me." She wasn't going to back down. Sabrina was too important. The only family aside from her mother she had left. It would kill her to not be a part of her little sister's life. With a sad smile on his face, he asked, "Please call me James. There are two Dr. Williams in this house. Gets a bit confusing." He paused and took another sip of tea. "How long has it been since you have seen her?" "My father's funeral, she was only 8 months old. And your stepmother kept her from you." It wasn't a question. This man was good, damn good. She had run a full background check on the family. He was a science teacher, for heaven's sake. How was he so good at reading her? Or had he delved into Sabrina's background himself? It made sense. He would want to prepare himself in case her real family ever showed up. "Yes, and then she banned my mother from getting custody in her will." Why was she telling him all of this? She didn't know him. There was no reason for her to trust him, and yet she did. Setting down his tea, he studied her for a minute. "And now, like you said, you're of age. Come to take what you feel rightfully belongs to you. I must say I am impressed that you found her, though. The adoption records were sealed and I personally hid the files behind 30 or so firewalls, misdirections and fake files. This means that you are very good and very determined to find her." So he was the one who had made it more difficult to locate the record. "I'm very good with computers," she said with a shrug. He grinned. "Very good, I'd say." Once again she stiffened. "I'm prepared to fight you in court. Biological families are overturning adoptions all the time." Again she waited for him to storm at her. She wanted him to yell so she could yell back. After years of lost time with her sister, she was desperate to let loose some of her anger. Again she was wrong and he remained calm. Shrugging, he said, "Could do, I guess. It would be long and drawn out, though. First you'd have to prove that you two were actually related. DNA tests take time, you know. Then you have to prove that you can take care of her on your own, more capable than we are. You said you're in university. Can't be more than 18, 19. Just turned 19, but that doesn't matter. I'm still her sister." Trisha remained defiant. James stood up and shoved his hands into his pockets. "Right, so as a 19-year-old university student, you are ready to take full responsibility for a 9-year-old. Responsibility for her education, her emotional well-being might be a bit tough. Plus kids are expensive. After a long drawn-out, expensive court battle you'd have loads of money to take care of her, right? As well-meaning as I'm sure you are, I'm not sure you are ready to be a full-time mother to a 9-year-old. Parenting takes a lot out of you. Not everyone is ready at a young age. Take my wife, for example. At 20, she thought children were right terrors. Now, she's not only a fantastic mother to our children, but is also a fantastic child psychologist. This is where the anger kicked in. Standing up to her full height, she practically yelled at him. I will not lose my sister again. You don't know me well enough to know what I am capable of. If you're not willing to give her back to her family, then I suppose I will see you in court. Good night. She tried to leave, but he was too fast. Blocking the doorway with his body, he smiled broadly. It infuriated her. Out of my way, you will be hearing from my lawyer. You are operating under two completely incorrect assumptions, Ep2 stalwart. He neither budged nor stopped smiling. And what assumptions are those, Dr. Williams? She placed her hands on her hips and tapped her foot impatiently. A small laugh escaped his lips. First, you assume that you are the only family that Sabrina has. True, you may be the only close blood relative. That's easy enough to prove with a simple DNA test, but she has a family. Family isn't just about a blood relationship. Right here in this house, Sabrina has a mother, a father, and 2 older brothers, all of whom would be heartbroken if you took her away. Her voice was quiet and tight when she spoke. I'll be heartbroken if I can't be involved in her life. His smile widened further. See, that brings me to your other incorrect assumption. You assume this is an all-or-nothing situation. One in which either she goes with you and we will never see her again, or she stays here, and you never see her again, neither of which is in Sabrina's best interest. The way I see it, if in fact you are really Sabrina's sister, you have every right to be in her life. As her sister, you can visit any time that you wish. We can even bring her to you at school. My oldest is attending university in London as well. We're in town quite a bit. How does that sound? This was definitely not the outcome she had expected. It was not in her nature to trust people. You don't even know me. Your wife has never met me, and yet here you are offering me as much access to Sabrina as I want. Why would you do something like that, and how do I know I can trust you? Again he shrugged and stepped out of the doorway. Now she could leave if she wanted to. There's just something about you, Trisha. I know I can trust you, or at least I know I will someday. Anyway, he tugged on his ear. And come on, you can trust me. I'm being more than fair. You would never win a court case. And as far as Rose is concerned, she knows I would never do anything to put Sabrina or Rory in danger. So what do you say as soon as the DNA test results come back, I give you a proper introduction? Unable to stifle a groan, Trisha slumped into a chair. That could take weeks. Nah, he walked over and picked up her mug of tea. I have Sabrina's DNA on file and a sample of yours. It might take me at the most 20 minutes, tops. And if everything looks good, we can do the introductions tomorrow. No way you couldn't have test results that quick. Unit's turnaround time is at least 48 hours. I'm not Unit, at least not anymore. His eyebrows quirked up, but he offered not further explanation. What, do you have some sort of alien tech in your basement then? If he did, it was amazing that he wasn't on Unit or Torchwood's radar. Wouldn't that be something? I'm just a genius scientist who gets bored and invents new technology for fun. Leave me your phone number, and when I get the results, I'll ring you up. Then you can come round in the morning. I'd wait until mid-morning, though, he hissed in a breath. Neither of the kids are much fun after the crash of a sugar high, so until tomorrow. In defeat, she pulled a piece of paper and a pen out of her coat pocket. Why not? It's not like I have anything to lose. You don't hold up your end of the bargain. I call my lawyer anyway. She handed the paper over to James. Here's my mobile number, and I'm staying at the inn in town if you need me. Trust me, Trisha Stalwart, you will be hearing from us very soon, promise. I'm sure Rose, Rory, and Sabrina will be anxious to meet you. He escorted her back to the front door. Surreptitiously, he picked a few more pieces of candy out of the now not quite empty bowl. See you tomorrow. As she finished buttoning her coat, she stared him straight in the eye. I expect you to keep that promise. Good night. And with that, she turned and headed back off towards the inn. This hadn't gone as she had planned, but what James had proposed could end up being a much better deal indeed. An hour later, James was sitting in the living room with a mug of tea. It had only taken 20 minutes to run the DNA test, and the results were conclusive. The elusive Trisha was the half-sister of his Sabrina. From the moment he had seen her on the porch, he had known it was her, the woman they had met their very first day here. Of course, when they had met her, she was several years older and had mentioned about a husband and a child in passing, so they would have known her a few years before she made the trip back. Oi, where have you been then? These two knocked on every door in town, not saying much though. There were more flats on the estate than there are in the whole village. Rose said, opening the front door and herding in 2 hyperactive children. Did you get caught up by one of the hoodlums causing trouble? It wasn't Jeff again, was it? That boy is nothing but trouble. Yeah, I got held up by our visitor, an old friend of ours actually, although it was the first time she met me. He scooted over so Sabrina could snuggle into his lap. Across the room, Rose laughed. Timey-wimey. Yep, he answered, popping the pea. Tell you later when these two settle down. Again she laughed, like that's going to happen anytime soon. Walking past Rory, who had settled in an armchair. She ruffled his hair, then she curled up next to James on the sofa. Rory already doesn't sleep much now, hopped up on sugar, he'll be up for a week. Mouth full of chocolate, Rory protested. Will not, sugar doesn't affect me like it does Brina, it'll be out of my system in a matter of hours. Rude, Sabrina taunted from her position on her dad's lap before turning to show Hi the goodies that she had collected. She and Rory told stories of which kids had the best costumes and which of the neighbors had the best decorations, all while munching on their stash. A half hour later, Rose confiscated the candy bags, promising they could have them back tomorrow after lunch. Then she sent them both to bed. When she heard the click of both bedroom doors shut, she turned to James. So what happened tonight? She asked, again curling into his side. He let out a slow stream of breath. I met the elusive Trisha tonight. She was the one skulking outside the front door when we got back. Although she was several years younger than when we first met her in 1988. So who is she? What did she want? The identity of the woman whom their future selves trusted beyond measure had until now been a complete mystery, and tonight she had been dropped on their doorstep. James chuckled. You are never going to believe this. She's Sabrina's 19-year-old half-sister. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? I mean, we were always going to help Sabrina find her sister when she was older, right? She paused for a moment. Wait, how did she find Sabrina? The adoption records were sealed and then you buried them in the computer servers. Her mother works for UNIT. James replied dryly. That could be problematic. We aren't supposed to let anyone know we're here for another 7 years. If Trisha finds out who we are and then tells her mother tells the Brigadier and we are outed. Or we trust her not to tell when the time comes to let her in on the family secret. It could be that the reason we choose to send Trisha back. Think about it, we could have waited until we could send someone like Jack, Martha, or Mickey back. Maybe we sent Trisha as a message. We sent her so that we knew we could trust her. A bright smile lit up his face like it was Christmas morning. Brilliant, Rose Tyler, simply brilliant. You're right, we would have immediately trusted one of my former companions. Trisha could have been a message that we could trust her. Knew I kept you around for a reason. He pressed a kiss into her hair. In retaliation for his biting remark, she dug an elbow into his ribs. Hope that's not the only reason you keep me around. Course not, you make an excellent cup of tea as well. Anything else he had to say was muffled when Rose hit him in the face with a pillow. That of course led to a round of tickling. Several long minutes later, Rose held up her hands in defeat. Okay, I give up. It took a few more minutes for the giggles to die out completely. So what do we do now? Should we introduce the girls? A deep blush crept up James' face. Well, see, I kind of already told Trisha that as long as the DNA test confirmed they were sisters and as long as you were okay with it, that she could meet Sabrina tomorrow. Mid-morning, you know Brina is rubbish first thing in the morning after Halloween. I had to do something. She threatened to sue for custody. I know she really doesn't have much of case, but I didn't want to put us in any type of spotlight. For good measure, he rubbed the back of his neck and had the good sense to look sheepish. Were you planning on asking your daughter how she felt about meeting her big sister? Rose asked, raising a single questioning eyebrow. That didn't actually cross my mind, no. Under her breath, Rose mumbled something about giving people choice as she fought the urge to roll her eyes. Well, I'm fine with the two of them meeting. Thank you for considering my input in this. Tomorrow we will simply ask Sabrina how she feels about meeting Trisha. As long as she agrees, then the meeting can go ahead as planned. She took a deep breath. I know we should trust Trisha, but our daughter's feelings come first. Agreed. Agreed. Once again, you prove to be the rational, level-headed one in this marriage. He stood and dragged her up to him. Now off to bed. It seems like tomorrow is going to be a busy day. Oh, it could still be a busy night too. She gave him a tongue-in-teeth smile before darting up the stairs. James was hot on her heels. 1 November 2001, Trisha was incredibly nervous as she stood outside the Williams house once again. As promised, James had called her that morning. His rapid DNA test had proved that Sabrina was her sister. Also, as promised, he said that she could meet her sister around 11. She had known the man less than 24 hours and he had kept more promises than most people she knew. It still seemed too good to be true. No one, not even her own mother, had kept their promises to her. Mum was too devoted to her job to have much time for her. Mostly Mum had just left her to her own devices. Sometimes she wondered why her mother even bothered to have a child. Her father had left when she was young. He barely saw her after he married Sabrina's mother. Then he had died, leaving her without even those brief visits. Granddad, her mother's father, had been wonderful. He was always telling her stories of his work with UNIT and his travels with the army. Tragedy had struck her life again when Granddad had a massive heart attack just 10 months after her dad had died. Tricia had been left with a gaping hole in her own heart. Her life had taught her not to trust people. She had been afraid that Sabrina, after having been adopted, would suffer the same lonely childhood that she had. The opposite seemed to be true here, however. Last night, after her meeting with James, she had done a little more digging on the Williams family. Everything seemed legitimate. James and Rose had been married in 1980, had Tony in 1981 while living in Norway. In May 1988, they sold their import/export company, Bad Wolf Corporation, and moved to Leadworth. Why they had chosen this tiny little town was beyond her understanding, however. A little less than a year after the relocation, their second child, Rory, had been born. That had been in February 1989. James was the only science teacher at the very tiny local school. Rose worked part-time as a child psychologist, mostly working with the children who were wards of the state. In the fall of 1997, they adopted Sabrina after she had been bounced between foster homes. They seemed like the perfect little family, and that was what bothered her the most. Something wasn't right here. Her instincts told her they weren't inherently dangerous people. They were just hiding something. She could feel it. For the moment, however, she didn't want to risk the cordial relationship that she was forming. So instead of her normal brash approach of pushing and prodding until she got what she wanted, she would wait, gathering information quietly until she could deduce what was really going on. Taking a deep breath, she raised a hand and knocked on the door. From inside, she heard a woman's voice, Rose, she presumed. "Hold on, I'm coming." A moment later, the door opened to reveal a petite, very pretty blonde woman. She looked young. No way could she have been much older than Tricia herself, really. Definitely not old enough to have a son in university. "You must be Tricia. Come in, come in. I'm Rose, by the way. Can I take your coat?" Rose ushered her into the house. "Thank you," Tricia said, handing over her coat. "It's lovely to meet you, Rose," she replied, swallowing down the lump in her throat. "I really appreciate your generosity in allowing this meeting." It was the truth. The compromise James had offered was much fairer than she had ever expected. Rose smiled brightly. "It's not a problem. Glad you're here. I just want you to know we always intended to help Sabrina find you." She gestured for Tricia to take a seat on the sofa. "We talked to Sabrina this morning, told her you were in town and would like to meet her. She is very excited to get to know all about you. I think she has a lot of questions. I'm not sure that I can give her any, at least not about our father," Tricia said under her breath. "I barely knew him myself." "Nervous?" Rose asked with a small knowing smile. "Just a little." She swallowed down her nerves. Part of her just wanted to run away. What if Sabrina hated her? Before she could do anything, Rose wrapped her in a hug. "You'll do fine, sweetheart. Are you ready?" She pulled back and Tricia nodded. Rose called for James to bring Sabrina out. The girl came into the room gripping her father's hand with a big grin on her face. "Sabrina, this is your sister Tricia." James introduced them. "Tricia, this is Sabrina." "Hello," Sabrina said shyly. "Hello." Tricia extended a hand to her sister. Sabrina laughed and threw herself into her sister's arms. The moment was unexpected but not unwelcome, and Tricia hugged her tightly. Over Sabrina's shoulder, she mouthed a thank you to James and Rose. "I think that we should give these two some space," James said, tugging on Rose's hand, trying to pull her back into the kitchen. "Mummy, can I show Tricia my room? I want to show her the picture I drew in class last week," Sabrina asked, now holding Tricia's hand. "Of course you can, sweetheart. We'll be in the kitchen if you need us. Oh, and lunch will be ready in an hour." Rose turned and walked into the kitchen, now pulling James behind her as Sabrina dragged Tricia up the stairs. Back in the kitchen, Rory and Amy were sitting at the kitchen table doing their schoolwork. Rory looked up when his parents entered the room. "So how did it go? Is Brina talking her ear off non-stop?" James grinned and sat down next to him. "Oh, I'm sure your sister is talking her ear off by now. Took her upstairs to show her one of her drawings, probably won't stop talking until she shows poor Tricia everything in her room." Amy leaned over and snatched a notebook from Rory. "When do we get to meet her?" "Sometime after you finish your studies, Amelia Pond," James said. "Your last essay for my class was a page and a half too short." "Couldn't help it, Dad. Boring subject, you know. I fell asleep halfway through that lesson," she said, sticking out her tongue. From the other side of the room, Rose laughed. "Oi, the cheek on you, missy. Don't know how we put up with you sometimes." "She's fun, that's why," Rory said defensively, coming to Amy's aid. "Plus, she doesn't get in half the trouble Mel's does." "Too true," Rose agreed. "Where is she, by the way? I thought that the three of you had to work on that project for your English class." "I called her this morning, Mum," Amy said as she pored over Rory's notebook. "Said she got in a bit of trouble last night, egging houses or something. But she should be here soon, only allowed out because it's here and it's for homework." Smiling ruefully, James said, "I'll give that girl one thing, she's got spunk. It'll just keep landing her in trouble, but I'm not one to throw stones." He took the notebook out of Amelia's hand and carefully appraised the sketches Rory had been doing. "So what's this then?" Rory shrugged. "For our English class. We have to do mock-ups of scenes for one of Shakespeare's plays. Miss Finnegan wants us to work in groups and draw or make a model of a scene from a play. We have Midsummer Night's Dream," Amy said, stealing the notebook back and pulling out her pencils to add color to one of the sketches. "We'll finish the diorama when Mel's gets here." She paused for a moment. "I think when the doctor come back I'll ask him to take me to meet Shakespeare. You might want to wait until you're a bit older though. I heard the bard was a terrible flirt," James said with a laugh, thinking of Martha. Rose groaned at the joke and Rory looked cross at the suggestion that someone might flirt with his Amy. Just then the back door slammed open and Mel's entered the kitchen. James moved from his seat at the table and Mel's mumbled a good morning before taking the newly opened seat. The newest arrival was in mid-rant about her foster mother when James went over and wrapped his arms around Rose's waist. "Now if only Tony was home our little growing nest of domesticity would be complete," he whispered in her ear. Leaning her head against his chest, she said in a low voice only he could hear, "Who would have thought that all this would come of what started in that dingy basement? Or that you would ever be domestic, especially in a house with windows and carpets." "Only for you, my love," he purred in her ear. Upstairs, Sabrina was happily showing her new big sister her room, pointing out knickknacks and telling stories of who gave them to her, showing her picture after picture of the family. Tricia had to admit that Tony Williams was a very handsome young man. She wondered which school in London he attended and when she would get to meet him. Suddenly, Sabrina got very quiet. "I'm sorry I don't remember you or our dad. I barely remember my birth mum. I don't even have any pictures from before I came to live here." "It's all right." Tricia pulled her into a hug. "I remember you and Dad. I even have a picture here of the three of us together." She pulled a photo out of her pocket. It was of her as a 10-year-old holding Sabrina as a tiny infant while their dad looked on. "You can keep this one if you like. I have a copy at home. And don't be sad that you don't remember. Be happy that we have the rest of our lives to make new memories." The broad smile now plastered on the younger girl's face made Tricia think. "Sabrina, are you happy here, with the Williams family?" Her smile grew even wider. "Oh yes, Mummy and Daddy are the best parents I could ever want. They take us to such wonderful places. And Rory and Tony are the best big brothers. Tony takes me for ice cream every time he comes home from school. Oh, and there's Amy, she's like Rory's girlfriend, she's splendid and funny too. And then there's their friend Mel, she's what Daddy calls a handful. I love it here." The part of Tricia was so happy that Sabrina had a great family here. Another part of her was crushed that she may never have a big spot in her sister's life. "That's brilliant, Brina. I'm glad you're happy here. You can be too. Mum always says that you can never have too much family. Will you stay here with us too?" The girl's eyes were hopeful. It was heartbreaking to tell her the truth. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry, I can't stay here with you all the time. I have a life in London University and my mum. But I can come visit you as often as I can. Plus James said that when you lot come to visit Tony that I can meet up with you. We can still be family, I just can't stay here." There was disappointment in her eyes as she nodded. "Can we email? Daddy showed me how on the computer." "I would love to get emails from you." Tricia smoothed her little sister's hair. "And you can call too if you want. I gave your dad my mobile number." "Oh, that would be brilliant. I've never had a sister before, although Amy and I are really close." Sabrina threw herself into another hug. Tricia's heart swelled as she returned the hug. "How about we head downstairs? Yeah, your mum said lunch would be ready soon. Is she a good cook?" Apprehension took over again. She had never been comfortable around groups of people. She was much better with one-on-one interaction. "She's a fair cook, I guess. Dad is loads better. Took cooking lesson in France in the 18. Sabrina caught herself about to say the 1800s, but she recovered. "I mean in the 80s, sometime before Rory was born, I suspect. In fairness though, he's a rubbish baker and Mum makes the best scones." With her almost limitless energy, she bounded down the stairs. Tricia followed in her wake. Back in the kitchen, lunch was ready. Rory, Mel's, and Amy were helping set the table, while Rose pulled a shepherd's pie from the oven. "Ah, great, you two are back," James said as Tricia and Sabrina entered. "How are things going?" He directed the question to Tricia, but Sabrina answered. "She's brilliant, Daddy. She told me a couple stories about growing up in London. Sounds amazing. Mummy's stories about London are completely different, and she gave me this." Sabrina handed him the picture of the two of them with their father. Tricia bit her lip, wondering if she had overstepped a boundary by giving her the picture. They hadn't discussed if she would be permitted to give Sabrina things, especially things of such a personal nature. Once again he surprised her. A small grin formed on his lips as he studied the photo. "Is this you two and your dad then?" he asked, not in an accusatory way as he took the picture gently from Sabrina. "I'm sorry, I should have asked first. Tricia reached out to take the picture back. James pulled it out of her grasp. No, it's fine. Sabrina, love. How about we get a frame for this tomorrow? You can put on your nightstand. Rose had come over to take a look. For now, we can put it here for safekeeping. Rose took the picture from James and walked across the room. Tricia was half afraid she was going to stuff the picture in the drawer, never to see the light of day again. Right, this needs place of honor, yeah. Rose asked Sabrina as she pulled a magnet off the fridge. Here, do you think? Rose pointed at a spot in the middle of the door. After Sabrina nodded, Rose placed the photo there. Where are our manners? She asked, turning back to the assembled group. Tricia, this is our son Rory and his friends Amelia Pond and Melody Jones. Everyone, this is Patricia. They exchanged hellos before sitting down to lunch. Tricia found herself more at ease with the family than she had thought possible. Not completely comfortable, though. It was easy to see how much love they felt for each other. And not just between James, Rose, and Rory. Sabrina, Amy, and Mel seemed to be an integral part of the family as well. For Tricia, the day passed far too quickly and yet not quickly enough. Everyone was warm and welcoming. They tried to include her in the conversation. For most people, it would have been a perfect afternoon. It was almost too much for her. The walls around her heart were too thick to truly be comfortable here. Part of her was still bracing for a fight that would never come, waiting for someone to let her down. It didn't happen. No one told her she couldn't stay or that once again what she wanted most was just out of her reach. Soon, she found herself needing to leave, both for the safety of her own feelings and so she could make the last train home. Tonight she had to return to London. Tomorrow she had to return to classes and her normal life. Hopefully, it would now include phone calls and emails from her sister. James and Rose promised to ring her when they came to town to visit Tony in a few weeks. This was the type of family she had always craved, but had never experienced. And even though they were hiding something and honestly seemed too good to be true, she wanted nothing more than to fit in with them. It was almost as if some invisible force was guiding her here. So, I'll have Sabrina call in a few days and I'm sure she'll email in the meantime. Rose had walked her to the door and retrieved her coat. If you need anything, sweetheart, just call. You're too kind, Rose, thank you again. Tricia fought to keep a tear from sliding down her cheek. I'm so sorry I threatened to take you to court and fight to take her away from you. She belongs here, I see that now. Your family is wonderful. Looking her directly in the eye, Rose said, You're forgiven, don't think anything of it anymore. We are all products of our experiences, and I can tell yours have been rough. She hugged her again. Tricia didn't think she had ever been hugged so much in a single day before. Besides, you're part of the family too now. So try and plan part of your holiday break here, if you can, I mean. Thank you. The errant tear broke free and slid down Tricia's face. You have no idea how much that means to me. As she walked out the door and down the street, Tricia smiled genuinely. A few days ago, she had been preparing herself for a battle that would inevitably end in heartbreak. Either taking her sister from the family she had known for years or her being cut out of Sabrina's life, again. This seemed like it would turn out so much better. They would both get the best of both worlds. And it seemed as if Sabrina's adopted family would be the ones to bring down the protective walls Tricia had built around her heart. Less than 24 hours around this wonderful, maybe too perfect family, and they had already started to crack. 31 December 2001, standing in the kitchen, Tony could see Tricia sitting alone in the back garden. He quickly put the finishing touches on the cups of Venusian hot chocolate. On the way out the door, he grabbed the blanket he had brought in from the living room. It was cold outside. He had met the fair Tricia about a month and a half ago. The family had come to visit and had invited Tricia to lunch. Mum had been delighted to learn that she attended the same university as Tony, telling him it would benefit everyone if they got to know each other better. The two had never crossed paths before though, understandably. He was a year ahead of her and while she studied computer science he was pre-med. It was obvious that Tricia was a very pretty girl, but she was also smart, funny, and a bit reserved. She also seemed a little uncomfortable around the family as a whole. Not without reason, they were loud, boisterous, and some members downright rude at times. Since that meeting, he'd spent some one-on-one time with her. It seemed she was much more comfortable with that. They had met for coffee once or twice. Mostly they spent their time sitting next to one another and studying in the library. Tricia made small talk, telling him tidbits about her life but hardly opening up. He knew she was raised as an only child by her mother who was married to her work. She had no family other than her mum and Sabrina. She never spoke of friends. All in all, she seemed lonely and guarded, and he was utterly smitten. In so many ways, he understood how she felt. Some days he missed his real mum and dad so much that it physically hurt. He sometimes felt like an outsider, an orphan. For the longest time he had been the only one in his family that was fully human. Hell, he was born in a completely different universe, and that on its own could make anyone lonely. But he wasn't alone, and now neither was she. No matter how uncomfortable Tricia seemed with the family at large, she was trying. Mum and Dad had invited her to visit during Christmas holidays. After having spent Christmas Day with her mum, Tricia arrived on Boxing Day. It had been apparent to Tony that she hadn't intended to stay long. She had booked a room at the only inn in Leadworth and had only brought an overnight bag. Mum would have none of that. In true Rose Tyler fashion, Tricia was now a part of the family and would stay with them. Amelia had shifted into Sabrina's room, giving Tricia the spare room. Sharon had gone on some business trip again, so Amy once again spent her holiday with the Williams family. Tony had offered to stay in his room in the TARDIS that was parked in the cellar so that everyone could have their own room. The idea had been shot down by Dad, saying it would cause too many questions to be asked. In the time that Tricia had been here, she had been trying to get to know everyone better. Obviously, she preferred to spend most of her time with the family as individuals rather than as a big group, which was why she was currently sitting alone in the back garden while the rest of the family, save him, had gone to the town square to watch the fireworks. He walked outside, making just enough noise so she knew he was coming. She scooted over on the bench to make room for him, her gaze still locked on the sky. "Here, I made some hot chocolate, thought it might help warm you up." Tony handed over a mug and sat down. After taking a sip, Tricia smiled. "Thank you, this is delicious." She continued to stargaze for a minute before speaking again. "Do you miss the stars?" Tony had been taking a drink when she asked the question, and in surprise he sputtered the warm drink. How did she know, he wondered. "What?" was all he managed to say. "When you're in London," her lips curled into a smile. "There are so many stars here. In London you can hardly see any. Just wondering if you enjoyed the view here better." Ah, that's what she meant, not that it had been months since he had been on a family trip. "Never really thought about it, never really have time to miss this. But yeah, I guess I do." Leaning back onto the bench, she shifted closer to him. He couldn't tell if she had done it on purpose or if it was just a byproduct of the other movement. I've only had a few days to look at them, and I know I'll miss them when I go back to school." She took a long sip of her drink. "It's nice here, peaceful. Life in London was never peaceful. Mum's job required her to be on call at all hours. Life turned upside down by a phone call." "What does she do?" He already knew the answer. His dad had told him. "Mum, oh, she works for UNIT like my granddad did, like I'll probably eventually do. Military organization, its mission is to help protect the Earth from aliens." She tensed slightly. "Do you believe in aliens?" Of course he did. He was related to a few. Heck, if he was back in his original universe, had he been raised by Pete and Jackie, he would have been working for Torchwood. At least he would have been after university. How could he tell her that, though? "Yeah, I believe in aliens. I've met them, been to whole other planets too. Want to come with me and see a few?" Yeah, that might make him sound like a bit of a nutter. He settled on something less crazy. "Sure there are. I mean, it's kind of selfish to think that in whole of the universe this silly little rock is the only one that's inhabited." "That's very logical," she said with a smile. "Would you think I was crazy if I told you I'd met aliens?" "Not at all," he replied quickly, and she let out the breath that she was holding. "I don't believe all those alien abduction stories, though. I mean, why would aliens travel billions of miles just to probe someone?" A snort of laughter escaped her mouth. "Most are peaceful. UNIT just steps in to handle the ones that aren't." She paused, probably waiting for him to tell her she was crazy. He didn't. "Your family is so normal, too normal," she said suddenly. Thank you, I think." He was confused. One minute they were talking about aliens, and then she was telling him how normal he was. Shifting, she turned to face him. "See, your family is so normal, it's not normal. There's something going on here, I know it." He turned to face her as well and said with fake confusion, "I'm not sure what you mean," even furrowing his brow to try and be convincing. Mum had said that they could trust her. However, he wasn't sure he could let her in on the secret. Well, not yet. "It just seems like from the outside that your lives are perfectly wrapped in a little bow. It's just that sometimes one of you says something that shouldn't make sense." Stiffening, Tony asked, "Such as?" He studied her face, looking for a hint of malice, anything that would say if she was a threat. There wasn't, so either she was a really good liar or she was simply curious. "Your mum looks like she's no older than you are, and no one around here seems to notice. She just has good genes, ages well, maybe even a little nip/tuck every now and then, I don't know." Mum wore a perception filter around her neck that caused everyone except the family to see her as if she aged like Dad did. How on earth did Tricia see past it? "It's not just that. The first time I came here, I overheard your mum and Dad talking about going back to 1942 to pick up a piece of a costume. They talked like they could travel in time or something. They just like to have a laugh," Tony said with a shrug. "I said I worked for UNIT and your dad called it by its full name. He even implied he worked there once. I checked, no one fitting his description has ever worked for Unit, and he knew what psychic paper was. Again he played it off. Dad's a bit eccentric, ask anyone. Besides, who knows what he got into when he was younger. He acted like he recognized me and then started talking like he lived his life out of order. Tricia bit her lip before she dropped the biggest bomb. And then there are Amelia's stories, her raggedy man. What about him? My granddad worked for Unit in the 70s, not very high-ranked, not the kind of person anyone would remember. But he used to tell stories about a man who worked with them. An actual alien, one who could travel in time, and, if the rumors are true, who could change his face. He was called the Doctor. I think that Amelia's doctor is the same man. Her entire body was almost shaking as she spoke. She was very clever. Only 2 months around the family, and she had connected dots that no one else had even come close to. Hopefully she wouldn't connect the dots to Dad. Could be Amy insists that the Doctor's ship travels in time. This time he was the one holding his breath. Exactly, a machine that travels in time, a man that can change his face. The strange things your dad says and that strange noise I heard on Halloween all add up to one thing. Your dad is the Doctor, isn't he? And your mum is a companion that travels with him. An alien that doesn't age. Damn it, a handful of meetings and more than 13 years of keeping their identities secret were up in smoke. Swallowing hard, he said nothing, probably confirming her suspicions in her mind. It's true, isn't it? Your dad is a time-traveling alien. You're an alien. Aren't you? Her face looked eager. I promise I won't tell anyone. I mean, your family seems great and Sabrina adores all of you. There must be a reason why you lot are in hiding. You can trust me. And he did. For some completely unknown reason, he trusted her. A flash of light in the sky reminded him of the town's New Year's Eve fireworks show. They never lasted more than 20 minutes. The family would be home soon. Mum said they could trust her. So either there was one of Dad's timey-wimey reasons or he had seen something in her timeline. Either way, she had figured it out and was demanding answers. Making a split-second decision, Tony held out a hand and said, "Come with me." Without hesitation, she took it, no questions asked. A spark of electricity flowed between them, her hand fit perfectly in his. Leaving the forgotten mugs of chocolate and the blanket behind, he pulled her into the house. He stopped only to pull a small key off a hook by the door. Turning on the lights as they walked down the cellar, he kept his hand on the small of her back to guide her. Stopping at the bottom of the stairs, he intentionally blocked her view of what was contained within. I'm going to show you something that no one knows outside of this family knows. Only Mum, Dad, Sabrina, Rory, and I know. Not Mel's or even Amy know this secret. Telling could have huge ramifications on the future timeline. Promise me you won't tell. I promise. She grinned at him as she tried to peek over his shoulder. Tony felt his own lips twist into a genuine smile as he turned around and pulled her towards the treasure hidden down here. Patricia Stalwart, welcome to the TARDIS. He unlocked and then pushed the door open. It stands for time and relative dimension in space. Watching her face, he knew why this was Dad's favorite part. She wandered up towards the console, completely unable to speak for quite a few minutes. How is this possible? It's bigger on the inside. She spoke softly after she was finally able to find her words. She's dimensionally transcendent, able to exist in 2 dimensions at once. Dad and Rory could explain the physics behind it, not me though. After everything I've seen, I just accept that there are things I can't explain. Tony leaned against one of the coral struts. In awe, Tricia turned in a circle, taking in the console room. You said TARDIS. This is the Doctor's ship. I was right, wasn't I? James Williams is the Doctor. Not really. Dad is, well, he's the Doctor's brother, sort of. It's complicated. Tony said, not exactly sure how to explain everything. Tricia ran a hand along the wall. Okay, it's complicated. I'm sure anything that has to do with the Doctor is. Just like I'm sure there's a complicated reason why you lot are in hiding. So explain it. I think I have a right to know if it endangers my sister. Heaving a sigh, he pushed himself off the strut and walked towards the captain's chair. Sabrina is my sister too, you know, and I would never let her get hurt. Ever. He knew that Tricia had had a lonely childhood and had some major trust issues, but she had to stop acting like she was the only one who cared for Sabrina. She did, however, deserve to know if her little sister was endangered. And she was dead clever, probably would never stop looking for answers until she had them. Where to start? He ran a hair absently through his hair as he plopped into the seat. Tricia sat down next to him and smiled. Why don't you start at the beginning and when you get to the end, stop? You'll never believe it, he said, returning her smile. My granddad and my mum work for a top-secret military installation that deals with aliens. I am currently sitting in an alien spaceship talking to an alien. Nothing you could say would surprise me. Go on then, try me, she challenged. He couldn't help but laugh. Okay, but first, I'm not an alien, I'm 100% human. But your dad is the doctor's brother. He's not biologically my dad. I didn't even meet him till I was 4. He shifted in the seat, getting comfortable. It was going to be a long story. See, I was born in another universe, one that my birth mum and my sister Rose got trapped in. Technically, my dad is actually my brother-in-law. It was her turn to chuckle. You were right, this does sound complicated, but that doesn't sound like the beginning of the story. Sounds more like the middle to me. Reaching over, she grabbed his hand. Care to start somewhere I can keep up? The year was 2005. My mum Rose was helping to close Henrik's, the department store. It took hours to lay out the entire story. Trisha asked questions when she needed clarification, otherwise she quietly listened. When Tony finished his exciting tale, they both sat there in silence that was only broken by the gentle hum of the TARDIS, stifling a yawn. Trisha finally stood and looked at her watch. Blimey, it's late, or rather early. Think it's time I turned in. Thank you for telling me the truth. She let go of his hand and headed towards the door. Good night. Tony was confused. That's it. He stood and followed her. I tell you this amazing story and all you have to say is thank you and good night? No, I trust that Sabrina's safe. Just good night. Before Tony knew what was happening, her lips were on his. It was simply the most brilliant snog he had ever had in his life, and it was over far too soon. Trisha pulled back, smiled again. Happy New Year, Tony Tyler. And she bounded out the door and up the stairs. In a daze, he followed behind. When he reached the kitchen, he was unsurprised to find his dad making tea. Undoubtedly, he had seen Trisha tear through here on her way upstairs. With a smirk, James asked, "Not normally up this early, are you? It's nearly 5 a.m. And was that Patricia I saw coming out of the basement just now?" "Yeah, that was Trisha." Tony sank into a seat at the table. I have to tell you something." Suddenly becoming serious, James sat down next to his son. "Don't tell me that something happened between you two. I mean, Trisha seems absolutely lovely. Nevertheless, we are still on tenuous ground with her. And look, I know that you're an adult. And if something, well, primal happened, I just hope that you use some sort of protection. Rose is just not ready to be a grandmother." Dad stopped. Tony turned slightly red. "Nothing happened. Well, she kissed me. Just for New Year, though, I think." Taking a quick breath, he continued. "Her grandfather used to work at UNIT in the 70s. He knew about you, told her stories about you, and she put together snippets of conversations and somehow figured out you were the doctor. Oh, and somehow she can see through Mum's perception filter." "Oh," James said softly, and then he exclaimed. "She is clever, brilliant in fact. What did you tell her?" Tony's blush deepened. "Okay. Don't be mad. Mum said we could trust her, so I told her everything. I took her to the basement, showed her the TARDIS, and told her the whole story." The corners of James' mouth twitched, betraying the stern look he was trying to keep on his face. "Everything? Yes. I started from the word run and ended with when she showed up on Halloween." He sank his head into his hands. Now that Tony wasn't looking, his face broke out in a full-blown smile. "No wonder you were up so late, and here I thought you were just being a typical human male. When you were done, what did she say?" Tony laughed and looked back up at his dad. "She said, and I quote, 'Thank you for telling me the truth.' I mean, I had just told her that I was born in a different universe. You were a biological metacrisis and that Mum and Rory were going to live for centuries, and she says, 'Thank you. I will never understand women.' Quite right, I'm over 900 years old, as well as the product of a metacrisis with a woman, and have yet to be able to crack the mystery of the human female. That's why I like traveling with them so much. One of the last mysteries of the universe they are. But why did she thank me?" Tony ruffled his hair in frustration. James gave a small shrug. "It's probably the first time in a very long time that someone has simply told her the truth. Her mum's UNIT, and with that comes a level of secrecy. There are probably huge aspects of her life that Trisha's mum simply can't tell her daughter. I do know that women appreciate honesty. Unless they ask you how they look and the truth is anything but positive, then you lie through your teeth." The kettle whistled and James jumped up to finish the tea. "Want a cup?" "Sure, we're not the Tyler family if we're not drinking tea." That reminded him that Trisha had called him by his real name. "She called me Tyler." "What?" James set the tea in front of his son. Right before she left to come upstairs. "She kissed me and then said, 'Happy New Year, Tony Tyler.' It was nice to be called that again. Reminded me that underneath it all, that's who I really am, Tyler, not Williams." Taking a sip of his tea, James nodded. "Names have power, ancient power. They can be used to kill the way the Carrionites used them. They can keep you fighting, or they can remind you of whom you really are." He stood up. "Finish that and head up to bed. Mum and Rory will be up soon. I'll let them know that Trisha is in on the family secret. Get some sleep, son." Leaning over, he kissed Tony's forehead. "Love you." In one gulp, Tony drained his not quite scalding tea. Love you too, Dad. See you later. Sleep well. Father and son parted, James going downstairs to tinker while Tony headed upstairs to sleep, the latter not knowing yet that he had begun the process of twisting another's timeline around his own, or just how fantastic that life together would be. Earth time, January 2003, new air filled their nostrils as James and Rose stepped out of the TARDIS. It was the first time in months that they had been able to get away on one of their honeymoon weekends. James had dressed in a brown pinstriped suit, a brown trench coat, and white Converse. The Doctor's battle armor, Rose had called it. A lot had changed since he had picked that suit that Christmas. More than 15 years of life on Earth had expanded his wardrobe considerably. Back home he wore jeans, slacks, and Lord's help him, the occasional t-shirt. Out here though, in the throes of time and space, he wore the armor that he had chosen soon after his regeneration. It helped him to keep their lives separate. The last thing they needed was for the Doctor's enemies to track them back to Earth. Tony and Tricia had come down from London to watch the two younger children. The plan was to not be gone more than 24 hours. But with his driving skills, they needed to have someone there to watch Rory and Brina in case it was accidentally 24 months. Squeezing his hand as they took off down the street, Rose asked, "So when and where are we?" "This my heart is fully in the year 67,554. Known for its pink sandy beaches and purple skies, this is an Earth colony that was settled in 53,679. So the population is humanoid." A tall creature with 3 arms passed close by and Rose giggled. "We Ellel, mostly humanoid." He could keep the laughter out of his own voice. Anyway, at this time of year the people of this planet are celebrating the Harvest Festival. Lots of feasts, dancing, and just for you love, shopping. I thought we might as well try someplace new this trip. Again Rose laughed and nudged him with her shoulder. "Your memory must be failing you, old man." Indignantly James spluttered, "I'm not old. I mean, even in human terms my body is the equivalent of what, 50? That's not old. Besides, I thought you liked the new salt and pepper hair I have. You said it was still really great hair. Is it because I have more wrinkles than you do?" "Stop it. I love your graying hair and your wrinkles, they make you look distinguished." "No, I called you old man since you said we've never been here before. We came here with Jack back when you were all big ears and leather." Rose grinned at the memory of her first Doctor. "Are you sure?" James screwed up his face, trying to remember bringing her here. "Why don't I remember?" Rose pulled him off the path and took his other hand in hers. "Let me show you." Opening her mind, she showed him images of her and Jack running through the market, and one of the 3 of them standing on that pink beach watching a sunset. The Doctor's hand was holding hers and he could feel the love she felt for him even then. Taking a small step back, "Seriously though, why did I forget that? Seems like it was brilliant." "Yeah, it was, mind you. I spent most of the day with Jack. You were off searching for TARDIS parts and then you came back acting all funny." She laughed and pulled him back into the path heading towards their hotel. "Come on, Dr. Tyler, let's get checked in and then we can get ready to enjoy the local festivities." James followed behind her, lost in thought. He was mentally running through memories, wondering what else might have been lost. Normally, he only buried or erased memories when they revealed too much about his future, namely running into a future version of him. Had he done that here? According to Rose's memory, their first visit had been about 5 years in the future. And of course he had never gotten the time wrong before. Using the psychic paper, James had checked Dr. and Mrs. Tyler into the honeymoon suite for a week of pampering, relaxation, and alone time. They had packed one of their bigger on the inside bags and Rose was currently perusing the dresses that she had brought. "I like the blue one," James said as he lounged back on the bed watching her. This was one of his favorite little domestics, watching her dress. "It flatters your girlish figure." With a snort, Rose began changing into the blue dress. She was always happy to dress in a style he liked. "I'm hardly girlish. Right now I'm somewhere in my early 40s, and my figure's not what it used to be, you know, before Rory was born, but thank you for the compliment. Rose, you are even lovelier today than you were when we met, and you don't look a day over 20. And your figure is even better than before you had Rory, because every change reminds me of the beautiful family you gave me." Every word was true. Plus, after so many years of marriage, he knew when to give her an ego boost. He stared at her in awe. Sometimes he wondered how he was the one who was lucky enough to get the domestic life with this beautiful, clever, compassionate, and absolutely brilliant woman. Once in the dress, Rose did a little twirl. The dress had a halter-style top and a skirt that flared out and stopped just above the knee. "You were right, this one is very flattering." "Well, if there is one thing I know very well, Dame Rose, it's your body." He gave her a wolfish grin. "We could skip dinner, you know, have a night in." He crossed the room and wrapped her in his arms. "True, we could stay here, enjoy ourselves here or over there." She pointed to the bed, or even in there. She pointed to the en suite. But then you wouldn't get to show me off. Have every man at dinner jealous that you get to go home with me and they don't. And then while we're dancing, you get to hold me close, swaying to the music, and we can imagine the things that come later. She painted a vivid picture in his mind, knowing that he loved both taking her out and keeping her in. Both choices were very appealing. You're making a night out sound better and better. Anticipation can make the night so much better. He pulled her closer and brushed a kiss against her lips. I can spend my time thinking of all the wicked things I will do to you later. Lifting up on her toes, Rose kissed his cheek before turning out of his embrace. I'll have something to look forward to then. For now, love, I'm starving and you'll need your strength for later. Tongue lolling out of his mouth, he followed behind her, ready to wine and dine the love of his lives. Hand in hand, they walked down the streets of the village they were staying in. The sun was just starting to dip below the horizon. The town square was decorated for the harvest festival. Large tables stood in line, each filled to the brim with food. A tall, thin woman with a heart-shaped face and shockingly red hair was greeting new arrivals. Welcome to our harvest festival, honored guests, she said, bowing slightly. I am Renessa. Hello, I'm Dr. Tyler and this is my lovely wife Rose, James said, returning the bow. Rose followed suit with one of her own. Ah, are you our newlyweds? Renessa tilted her head to the side in question. Rose giggled. Everywhere they went they were always mistaken for newlyweds. It couldn't be the way that they stared adoringly at each other or that they were always touching. No, we're not newlyweds anymore. Actually, we've been married almost 17 years. Our oldest is 21, our middle son will be 14 next month, and our daughter is 10. She grinned, always ready to brag about her children. Renessa leaned forward and placed a beaded necklace around each of their necks. It is always hopeful to see couples still so deeply in love after so long together. Blessed be Dr. and Rose Tyler. Blessed be, they said together before finding their way to a table. Look at all the nibbles, Rose, I love nibbles. He picked a canapé and held it out for her to taste. She took the bite, making sure to brush her lips and tongue over his fingers, sending a chill down both of their spines. This was going to be a long, delightful night of teasing. You are a minx, Rose Tyler. Just wait until I get you back to the room, he said with a seductive grin as he pulled a chair out for her to sit. Looking forward to it, she purred back, sitting down. During the feast she made small talk with the couple next to them, having light-hearted conversation, all the while her fingertips ghosted random patterns on his thigh. Smiling as she heard his sharp intake of breath when her hand went a little too high. Later, when they were on the dance floor and the song slowed, James exacted his revenge. Pulling her close, he allowed his hands to roam south. Lightly he cupped the curve of her bum before resting his hands higher on her waist. As the song played on, his lips found the pulse point on her neck. Again only teasing her, after a moment of caress he pulled away, eliciting a groan of disappointment to escape her lips. They teased their way through 3 more songs before Rose's voice echoed in his head. Hotel now. Before we get arrested for public indecency. Wouldn't be the first time, he thought back as he pulled her across the dance floor. Yes, love, but I'd rather spend tonight in a nice comfy bed than a jail cell. Point taken, they had reached the entrance to the festival. Tugging tightly on her hand, James increased his speed to a brisk walk, almost a jog. Slow down, old man, Rose laughed as she allowed herself to be pulled through the hotel lobby and into the lift. As the door closed, James pushed the button to their floor, then spun her around until her back was pressed against the wall. I'll show you just what this old man can do. His lips crashed into hers. Just as he was about to deepen the kiss further, a ding alerted them that the lift had arrived at its destination. With a groan, they broke apart. Faster than what was strictly possible, they exited the elevator and made it into their room. Together, they spent the rest of the night and part of the next morning proving that neither one of them was old. The sun peeked through the windows and filled their room with early morning light. It was the dawn of their 5th day here. Only 1 day left, and by tonight they would be home in England, back with their family. Rose loved being able to spend one-on-one time with James. They got the chance to reconnect and to just be the Doctor and Rose, not just Mum and Dad. James was still in a deep sleep, sprawled haphazardly across the bed. It was funny how since the metacrises and the changes in her genetic makeup due to Bad Wolf, he was the one that slept more often. There were a few other role reversals that had come along with the changes. He was now the one growing old while she stayed young. While he still healed faster than a normal human, she healed twice as fast. Most importantly, he would die one day and she would live on. Now, when they slowed down like this, she could almost feel the seconds slip away from them. It was unexplainable, but it felt like they had less time left than they had already spent together. She felt like they were already past the halfway point. It had been 18 years since Bad Wolf Bay the second time. Another 18 years with James wouldn't be enough. Millennia wouldn't be enough, and for the first time she understood how the Doctor had felt. She understood why he had pushed her away, why he had left her behind with James. It's not what she would have done. But she now understood the reasoning. And she also knew that despite everything that had happened, she would always love him. Every him. 9 years ago, she had promised her husband that they would discuss her future relationship with the doctor. Now what would she say? She could never leave James. She wouldn't want to. Her love for the man who had stood beside her for so many years would never lessen, would never come second. Not even to the doctor, the fully time Lord one. James stirred, bringing Rose out of her revelry. "Morning, my love," she said, snapping her last earring in place. In return, he mumbled something unintelligible, rolled over and buried his face in his pillow. "It's almost lunchtime, sleepyhead." Sinking into the bed next to him, she placed a kiss on the part of his cheek she could reach. "You've been keeping me so busy, I haven't had a chance to enjoy the shopping." He grumbled again. "Stop it, I'm not making you come along, I have my super phone. Just give me a ring when you join the land of the living." She planted another kiss on his head and walked out the door. As she lifted her face to take in the sunshine, a small giggle escaped her lips. When she was first on this planet at the age of 19, the doctor had ordered her to stay with either him or Jack at all times. He had been such a worrier then. Even on a peaceful planet like this one, he hadn't wanted her to wander off. Oh, how times had changed. After years of hopping between universes, and many arguments between her and her overprotective husband, she could now go shopping in peace. Sure, in a few hours James would catch up to her and groan that he had been left to his own devices for far too long. But he trusted her to keep herself safe, and of course she could call him telepathically if the need arose. Reaching the beginning of the street market, Rose smiled in anticipation. Shopping in alien marketplaces was always exciting. There were always bits and bobs that she had never seen before. Plus it was always fun to pick up trinkets for the kids, a group that now included Trisha. Rose secretly hoped that Tony would choose to make things permanent with the young woman. It was hard not to see the connection the two shared. They practically lived together when at school and were nearly inseparable. Trisha also spent the majority of every holiday break at their house in Leadworth or on TARDIS trips. Of course, Tony had just started medical school this past fall, so he may put off settling down for a while. Either way, she wanted both him and Trisha to be happy. Something in one of the stalls caught Rose's eye. A silver necklace that looked very similar to the one she had bought the first time she came here. A necklace that she was sure was still in her jewelry box in the doctor's TARDIS. She smiled at the vendor and moved on. A few hours later she was laden down with packages. She had found the last book of a series that Sabrina had been reading. There were some mechanical gadgets for Rory and James to take apart together. For Tony, she had procured a 3D virtual model of the human body that, with a tissue sample, could adjust for almost any species. Rose had found a stunning red stone bracelet for Trisha, and was just picking up a set of hair clips for Amy and Mel's when she heard it. A voice she thought she'd never hear again. A northern burr that said her name in the unique way only he could. "Rose, I told you not to wander off. I'll kill Jack for letting you out of his sight. Jeopardy friendly, that's what you are." He was at her side and taking her hand before she could say or do anything. "Come on then, let's go find your pretty boy." He adjusted his grip, her left hand in his right. She could tell the moment he felt the rings she wore on her third finger. Abruptly he stopped and turned to face her. His eyebrows knitted as he studied her appearance. All she could do was stand there and study that face she had first fallen in love with. "Your hair's different. It's slightly darker and shorter," he said, breaking the silence. "And those aren't the clothes you were wearing when I saw you last." Rose couldn't help but smile. Long peroxide blonde hair and jeans with a hoodie were perfectly acceptable for a 19-year-old shop girl. They were not, however, for a 40-something psychologist, wife, and mother of 3. Picking up her hand, the doctor examined her wedding and engagement rings. "And I know for a fact you weren't wearing these when you left the TARDIS. What's going on?" "Doctor, I can explain everything," she started before another familiar voice interrupted. "Oi, hands off my wife," James called, not yet recognizing the man holding Rose's hand. She groaned when she saw the doctor's face fall. "Ah, I see," he said, releasing her hand and turning to face James. "You're gonna leave me and marry this pretty boy." "Doctor, it's not like that. I'd never leave you for another man." Rose moved around to place herself between the two men. "In my future you've regenerated. I turn into him next." The doctor looked slightly horrified as he peered over her shoulder at a version of his future self. "I would have thought with you around, Rose, that I would have gone younger." James laughed. "I'm a bit more complicated than your average regeneration." Turning to Rose, he whispered in her ear. "No wonder I don't remember being here with you before. Tell him whatever you feel is necessary. You'll have to lock away his memory of it anyway." Leaning over, Rose touched his hand and gave the trigger to unleash memories of these events about to take place. A trigger she would be planting in the doctor's head shortly. "See you back at the TARDIS and then we'll head home." "Yeah, James nodded and gave a sad, knowing smile to the younger version of himself. Rose held out her hand and the doctor took it, letting her lead him someplace quiet. So, he said in a voice just above a whisper, in the future we're married. Sort of, it's a bit complicated actually. She laughed lightly. Took me a couple weeks to wrap my head around it myself, but it turned out all right in the end. This seemed to confuse him more. What did he mean, not a normal regeneration? He's a biological meta-crisis. It all started when you lost your hand in a sword fight. Won't happen to you for a bit though. Rose let go of his hand and raised her own towards his face. It would be easier if I showed you, may I? Immediately he nodded. Where'd you learn to do this then? He said, closing his eyes as Rose's fingers made contact with his temples. Trying to sound nonchalant, she said softly, oh, you know, bonded to a telepath, mother of a telepath, and of course a couple enhancements from the TARDIS. Her mind brushed his, asking permission again to enter. I've seen almost everything you've got up here, but if there's anything you don't feel comfortable with me seeing, just imagine it behind a door. Usually the door thing is my line, he huffed. It's a good line. She smiled and closed her own eyes. Now I'm going to show you some memories, okay? His head moved as she felt him nod. Suddenly she pushed the images at him. The sword fight with the Sycorax, Canary Wharf, and Bad Wolf Bay. She showed him getting hit by the Dalek as they ran towards each other. She felt him gasp at the aborted regeneration, and then James and Donna's appearance on the Crucible. Tears leaked from her own eyes as she showed him the second Bad Wolf Bay. Then images of their wedding, Rory's birth, Sabrina's adoption, Tony's graduation, and many, many birthdays and Christmases filled his mind. After he had seen enough, she pulled back out of his mind. That's he started, opening his eyes. Are you happy, Rose? Immensely, love. More than I ever thought possible. She lowered her hands from his face and took his hand in hers. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. You've barely aged, Rose. It wasn't a question. Why is that? She smiled. Let's call it a gift from the TARDIS. I can't say more than that, or you may try to stop it from happening, and everything has to happen the way it has for me. In order for you to have your son, it has to say the same. A new race of humans and Time Lords. He smiled at her, a genuine smile. Genius me, he blew out a breath. Another Time Lord, that's fantastic, just fantastic, is he? The doctor pointed to his temple, nodding. Rose said, he is, and so am I, and I'm pretty sure River Song is too, though you won't meet her for some time. Point is, you won't be alone up there anymore. Well, James isn't, and you won't be once we meet again. I hope it's soon that I meet up with you in your timeline. He looked deep into her eyes. Rose missed those blue eyes sometimes. I need you in my life, Rose. I can't imagine losing you. Tears glistened in his eyes during this rare moment of vulnerability. Her free hand rose to cup his cheek. Oh, love, I know, but it's only for a few years, a blip in your considerable lifespan. It's not permanent. You're not alone, love. You say that word so easily. He leaned into her hand. It's because I love you, Doctor, every version forever. Rose leaned in until their foreheads were touching. Every regeneration or metacrisis, there isn't one that I won't love. There is no one else for me. He swallowed hard again. You know I do too. I feel that way about you too. Obviously stumbling over the words he was unable to say. You know though, don't you? Course I know. I've always known, and you'll say it when you're ready. Once again, Rose brought her hands to his temples. Your Rose, the one with you now, loves you so much already. Now it's time for you to go back to her and Jack. Flinching slightly at her touch. The doctor said, it can't be time yet. I don't want to leave you yet. I'm sorry, but it is. I remember you coming to meet us on the beach right about now. She leaned in and pressed a kiss to his lips as she entered his mind once more. When the time comes for you to leave us on the beach, just know that you are doing the right thing, and I appreciate the sacrifice of your happiness for mine. I love you. He whispered, forever, and she locked the memory away behind a door only she could open. Rose was somber as she parted ways with the doctor. As much as she loved her husband, she loved the doctor too. They were the same man after all. Even after almost 20 years, it was still confusing at times. Her life hadn't been uncomplicated since the word run. Still, she wouldn't have it any other way. When she entered the TARDIS, James wasted no time meeting her with a bones-crushing hug. It helped to know you're happy. It's all I want. It's all he wants. Rose felt their ship brush her mind. Everything will be all right, my wolf. A feeling of reassurance and love washed over her. Reaching out, she stroked the nearest bit of the console. Being able to hear the TARDIS speak was a gift only she and Rory possessed. James could hear her song, they could hear her voice. She pulled out of the hug completely. I need to see the kids, let's go home. Hands held tightly together. James threw the switches that would take back to Leadworth and their family. June 2003. Oi, stupid face. Over here, Amy called out as she saw Rory walking past. She was trailing her foot absent-mindedly through the gravel beneath the swing. With a thunk, Rory dropped his bag to the ground and plunked down in the swing next to her. They sat silently, swinging for a few minutes before Amy asked where Mel's was. In detention with Miss Finch. I heard something about Mel's back-talking and a giant spider in the teacher's desk. His lips curled into a smile. You know, typical Mel's can't keep herself out of trouble. As much of a pain as his friend was sometimes, Rory had always felt overly protective of her. Almost big brotherly, not like how he felt about Amy. Besides, Mel's intrigued him. Neither he nor Dad could see anything in her timeline. It was like she was some big cosmic secret. Dad can only get her so many get-out-of-jail-free cards, huh? Amy smiled and her whole face lit up. Her mouth is always getting her in trouble. Mum's never convinced her to stop talking about the doctor in school. Probably why she still has to visit Dr. Williams and why I got to stop a few years back. Rory reached out and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Yeah, people here can't see past the ends of their own noses sometimes. Afraid to think there may be something out there greater than themselves. Smiling, Amy spun around in her swing until the chain was tight, but then planted her feet so she didn't spin back. See, that's one thing I love about you, Rory. He flushed bright red. You Mum, Dad, Tony, Brina never ever judge me, never think I'm lying, especially you. She giggled. Even when we were kids and I made you play Raggedy Doctor games, so yeah, thanks for being my best friend. You're welcome, was all he could manage to say. Why did she always get him tongue-tied? You're my best friend too, you know. Her eyebrows knitted in mock confusion. Course I am. Who else around here would put up with you and that caring, loving, overly protective family of yours? She stuck her tongue out at him before pulling up her feet and releasing the tightly spun swing. Round and round she went, feeling like she was flying. Neither could hold back their laughter as she fell out of the seat and into the gravel. After a minute, Rory leaned over and offered her a hand up. She took it with a smile and yanked his hand hard. With a grunt, he toppled ungracefully out of his seat and ended up on top of her. His face landed just millimeters from hers. His lips were almost touching hers. If he shifted just a bit, he could kiss her. Rory could feel his double heart rate increase. The Time Lord part of his physiology fought hard against the powerful human hormones now coursing through his 14-year-old, partially human body. Just as Rory found the courage to finally kiss Amy, she rolled out from under him, laughing. She was on her feet and walking away before he could say or do anything else. Come on then, she said over her shoulder. I have something I want to show you. He trailed behind her, picking up his book bag as he passed it. After a few minutes of walking, he asked, Where are we going? Someplace quiet where no one will bother us. Amy slipped her arm through his and rested her head on his shoulder. Her scent filled his nostrils. Immediately, his mind raced, thinking about what kind of trouble the two of them could get into all alone. His stupid human hormones kicked in again. Licking his dry lips, he asked, And where might that be? Oh, you'll see, was all she would say. They ambled along talking about school when Tony was going to propose to Trisha and the latest movies at the cinema, just normal, everyday things. However, Rory felt like he was on fire as one of her arms snaked around his waist. It took all his concentration to slow his breathing. After a 10-minute walk into the woods on the outskirts of town, Amy finally stopped. Here we are, someplace no one will bother us. Plopping down on the ground, she pointed to a spot opposite her. Sit, she commanded and started pulling things out of her bag. Sitting down, Rory let out a deep sigh. His hopes of this turning into a make-out session were dashed when Amy pulled out one of her notebooks. Not that he and Amy had ever even kissed, well. Once she kissed him on the cheek under the mistletoe. He wanted to kiss her so very badly. For as long as he could remember, he had been in love with Amelia Pond. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to tell her. He was just too scared, a trait his mum told him he had inherited from his dad. Earth to Rory, Amy was now waving a hand in front of his face. Are you in there, Rory? Shaking his head to clear away the daydreams, he focused on Amy's face. Yeah, I'm here, so why did you bring me here again? Suddenly, Amy blushed nervously. She was never nervous. I wanted to show you something. Okay, he said slowly. What is it? In a rush of words, she said, I've written a book, okay, maybe a couple of books. I've just never shown them to anyone before. Again, reaching into her bag, she pulled out a bound stack of papers. I typed up the first one, to make it easier to read. Shoving what he now knew to be her book in his hands, she looked away. Will you read it and promise not to take the mickey out of me? These books are about the doctor, right? Rory asked as he read the title page, A Mad Man and His Blue Box by Amy Pond. Well, yeah, all about his travels in space and time. She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear. But you're in them too. I'm in them, he said in a hushed tone, unable to hide the disbelief in his voice. Yes, you Mum, Dad, Tony, Sabrina, all of us. The doctor is lonely, so we're his family here on Earth. In the book, you and I travel the stars with him. Rory's mouth gaped open. Amelia Jessica Pond was one of the most amazing people he had ever met. Her imagination had almost led her to the truth. Right then and there, he wanted to tell her everything about who he was and the adventures they could have together. And then he saw it. Telling her would cause a split in their timelines. If he told her the truth, he could lose her. Whenever he was about to tell her who he was, their timelines started to split. So, like always, he kept those precious nuggets of information to himself. Just like his mother's letter had said, he would wait until she finally slid the pieces together on her own. So will you read it and tell me what you think? Amy interrupted his thoughts once more. And you'll be honest about it. Flipping through the pages, Rory nodded. Course I will. Do you want me to read it now? He asked, looking up at her. Well, that was the point of bringing you here, silly. Again. She became nervous. If it's rubbish, I don't want anyone to know. So please be honest. He grinned. You have my word. Turning past the title page, he began to read. It was a universal truth that a lonely man in possession of a blue box must be in want of a friend. Unable to help himself, Rory giggled. Mum's love for Jane Austen had rubbed off on his Amy. He continued to read. Although he could have read it twice as fast, he took his time, savoring every word. Amy, for her part, sat there sketching him as he read. Occasionally, they would look up at the same time, catch each other's eye, and smirk. The story was quite brilliant. Lizzie, Amy's pseudonym, meets the professor as a child. He had shown up because Lizzie had an alien living next door. Not necessarily a bad thing, but the alien wanted to take over Earth. When everything had been sorted, Lizzie asked to go with the professor. She wanted him to take her away to a better life. It nearly broke the professor's heart to tell her that she couldn't come, at least not yet. She had to stay here and grow up first with her friends the Thompsons. But he promised to come back and visit her, and when she was 18 she could come with him. And he had promised her that her best friend Robbie could come too. The words Rory read evoked a plethora of emotions. He laughed and cried along with the characters. There was a connection that he felt to them, and not just because they were based on members of his own family. Amy clearly had a gift for the written word. The preview that she had included for the next installment promised great adventures for Lizzie, Robbie, and the professor. Personally, Rory couldn't wait to read it, and luckily for him, he had an in with the author. Setting down the loose-leaf booklet, Rory grinned stupidly at his best friend. Did you like it? Amy asked, noticing he was done. He shook his head. No, I didn't like it. Amy's face fell and Rory kept speaking. I loved it. This is absolutely brilliant. Molt Benny, do you have the next one done yet? Her wide smile almost split her face. Yeah, I have the next two done actually. Do you really want to read them? Leaning over, he took her hand. I really do. He looked up at the falling darkness and realized they had been there for 5 hours, 24 minutes and 53 seconds. I think we should head back. Mum is probably having kittens wondering where we are. Not strictly true. About an hour ago, he had telepathically sent a message to Dad telling him where they were. We can come back here tomorrow if you want, Amy said as she brushed a strand of hair out of her face. Or you could just come over. I could read them in the garden. Mum and Dad would love to read them too. Rory gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. They'll love them as much as I do. Amy's gaze trailed down to the spot where their hands were joined. I'm not sure I'm ready for anyone else to read them yet. I mean, I trust you more than anyone. She swallowed. I will show Mum and Dad the books eventually. If you really think they're good enough, just not yet, please. He pulled her closer and wrapped an arm around her. On your own time then, okay. For now, let's get home before either your aunt or Mum has a fit. Hand in hand, the best friends walked back through the woods. Another piece of their future having just fallen into place, though not even the Time Lord realized it. December 2003, why am I here? Rory whined as he stepped out of the car. His dear brother Tony had dragged him to a jewelry store in central London a week before Christmas. His older brother could not have picked a better way to torture him. There are jewelry stores closer to home, Tony, or we could borrow the TARDIS and I could take you to the largest precious stone exchange in the galaxy. Money's no object out there. I can always use my Sonic on a cash point, you know. Get us an unlimited credit stick. Tony rolled his eyes and opened the door to the shop. Hush, baby Time Lord. I brought you here because I need your help and I thought you might want to pick out a nice present for Mum, or maybe one for your little Amelia. She still wears that locket you got her years ago. Maybe get her a new one with your picture in it this time. She's not my Amy, Rory huffed. She's just a friend. But you want her to be more than just your friend, don't you? Tony laughed as he watched his brother squirm. Tell me you don't want to see your timelines get all tangled up in each other. Seriously, have you kissed her yet? Rory let out a deep sigh. Tony, she and I aren't like that. Amy is my very best friend and nothing more. We can't be because I can't tell her the truth. Maybe when we're older, but not right now, okay. There was a shadow that passed over his face, one that showed his older brother that this subject was 100% off limits. Holding his hands up in surrender, Tony said, all right, I give. No more talking about you and Amy, at least not today. He clapped his hands together. Now back to the task at hand. You said you needed my help. What do you want me to lick the stones to see if they're real? Cause that sounds like it's more Dad's department than mine. Rory laughed at the image of Dad licking all the jewelry Tony would be looking at, then summarily being escorted out of this posh jewelry shop by security. No, I don't need you to lick anything. Suddenly Tony blushed. I'm going to ask Trisha to marry me, he said quickly and quietly, and I want your opinion on the ring. Rory's face lit up. Congratulations, big brother. Trisha is a brilliant girl, a bit out of your league though. As long as she doesn't mind settling for a primate like you, the two of you will be amazingly happy. She hasn't said yes yet. Tony's whole face went redder than his strawberry blonde hair. I hope she will, but we've never really talked about marriage. We've been living together for almost a year. I just hope she says yes. Of course she will. She's been crazy about you right from the start. Rory said matter-of-factly. Not that I understand why, mind you, so are we here to pick out a ring? No, I had a ring designed using one of the rings Mum brought from the parallel universe. Tony looked embarrassed again. Rory had never seen his brother blush so much in one day in his entire life. One of Gran's rings. Rory asked, so Mum knows you're proposing then? Tony shook his head. No, Mum gave the ring to me a year or so ago. I think she was trying to give me a hint. No one else knows but you. It's a surprise and I didn't want the cat to get out of the bag too early, so you have to promise not to tell anyone. Furrowing his brow, Rory asked confusedly, so why exactly am I here again? Sighing, the elder continued, like I said. Wolf cub, stop calling me that ape, Rory growled. Tony ignored him and continued. I wanted your opinion on the ring. Thought that maybe you could pick something nice out for Mum, Amy, Mel's, and Sabrina. Oh, and there's someone here I thought you might like to meet, kind of like a present for you. He beamed at his little brother. Rory started to ask what he meant, but he was rudely interrupted. Oi, space cadets, do you need help or are you going to tie up my counter all day? Turning, Rory saw a tall, red-headed woman looking crossly at them. Mum and Dad are going to kill you, he muttered under his breath to his brother. Their parents had been crystal clear on interfering with people who were important in Mum and Dad's future. And this woman certainly qualified as important to their future. Rory, Tony started, this is Donna, she helped me design Trisha's ring. Donna, this is my little brother Rory. Pleasure, Donna Noble said, rolling her eyes. So, you're here to pick up your ring then, cutie? Tony nodded, give me a tick. I'll get it from the safe. When Donna was out of earshot, Tony beamed at his little brother. Merry Christmas, Rory. Are you insane? The younger man hissed. We can't be here. If we alter anything, even the simplest thing, I could cease to exist, or worse, we could bring on the Reapers. Mum still has nightmares about them. I can't believe that you tracked her down. We need to leave now. Rory tugged on his arm. Calm down, Tony pulled out of Rory's grip. I didn't track Donna down. I came in here to get Trisha's ring made and Donna was already here. I asked for her help designing the ring, thought it might make it more special. I thought you might like to meet her and maybe she could help pick out our gifts for everyone. He wiggled his eyebrows and Rory rolled his eyes. Softening his tone, Tony said, seriously, it's not like she's going to remember us. We're just two customers during the Christmas rush. But for us, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. At that moment, Donna came back into the showroom carrying a small black velvet box. Alrighty then, boys, here is one custom-made, 1-carat princess-cut diamond with 3 smaller diamonds on each side and set in solid platinum. Your girl is one very lucky lady, Sonny Jim. Opening the box, she handed it over. If she says no, I'd be more than happy to heal your pain. She winked at Tony and Rory chuckled. Donna was only a little older than Tony and according to Dad had been a little wedding crazy when they had met. I'll keep that in mind. Tony winked back, always the flirt, his brother. Donna's face went as red as her hair. This is perfect, thank you Donna, I'm sure Trisha will love it. What do you think, Rory? Sparkly. Rory wiggled his fingers at his brother. Seriously, it's gorgeous. Trisha would be a fool to turn you down, and not just because it's a nice ring. Well, Tony. Donna wiggled her eyebrows and handed him a clipboard. Just sign here for the pickup. You're all paid up and that's that. So is there something else I can help you with? Maybe give you my number, just in case. Chuckling, Tony turned to his brother. Anything else we need, Rory, or should we just let Donna get back to her day? To say he was torn was an understatement, Rory thought. He'd wanted to meet Donna his whole life, but had known that it would probably never happen. First, they had sworn to never interfere with her timeline before she met Dad. Second, after the Crucible and the Metacrises, she could die if he simply uttered the wrong word. Now he stood in the presence of the fantastic Donna Noble, his father's best friend and the other half of the Metacrises. He's always thought of her as Aunt Donna, and without her he would have never been born. This may be the only chance he ever got to spend time with her. Like Tony had said, she would never remember 2 customers during the Christmas rush. Yeah, I think there's something else you could help us with, Rory said, having made a decision to spend a little more time with her. I need some help picking out a gift for my mum. Maybe we could get something for our sister, his girlfriend, and my 2 best friends too. Donna smiled and Rory could imagine her adding up the commissions in her head. Were you looking for something like a necklace, maybe a bracelet? I would say a brooch, but probably not for the younger ones. She started pulling out pieces for the brothers to examine. Tony clapped Rory on the shoulder and whispered in his ear, "Knew you wouldn't be able to resist." "Oi, pay attention, I haven't got all day," she snapped. "Now do you want individualized pieces or maybe something that matches?" An hour later, Tony and Rory walked out with an engagement ring, 5 matching bracelets and a watch for Dad. "See, I told you," Tony gloated. "Timeline still intact. You're still alive, much to my chagrin. And best news of all, no reapers." He gestured toward the sky. "And now Mum and the rest of the girls will have a bauble that the great Donna Noble helped pick out." "Yeah, and Dad will have the watch." Rory paused. "Do you think we should tell them? I mean, it will mean more to them if we tell them Donna helped pick the jewelry out." "Of course we'll tell them, preferably when Amy and Mel's are there and they can't yell at us." Tony sank into the driver's seat of his car. "Speak for yourself." Rory grumbled, getting in the passenger side. "They can yell at me telepathically in a crowd of people and no one would be any wiser." "Poor baby Time Lord," Tony said, leaning over to pat his cheek. "The perils of being a superior being, having Mummy and Daddy able to yell at you in your head." "Keep taunting, ape," Rory growled, "and I'll show you what a superior being can accomplish." Christmas morning, Tony surveyed the sight before him, a nervous anticipation and almost dread gnawing in his stomach. The Tyler family, Tricia, Amy and Mel, sat around the Christmas tree. Most of the gifts had been opened. The only ones left unopened were the ones that he and Rory had bought from Donna, and the engagement ring that sat heavily in his jeans pocket. "Okay, last gifts," his younger brother said, rubbing his hands together. "Tony, can you help pass these out?" Rory held a few of the gifts out. "Just call me Santa," Tony smirked as he began to pass the small boxes out to the intended recipients. "We found these at a great store in London," Rory continued. "The saleswoman was an old friend of Dad's, a very noble woman. She was just stepping there for the holidays." Dad's eyes shot up as Tony handed him his box. "You met Donna. You two didn't say anything inappropriate, did you?" "No, Dad. Everything is perfectly fine. We accidentally found her while we were out shopping," Tony reassured his dad. "Who's Donna?" Amy asked, shaking the box Rory had just handed her. Rose smiled. "Donna was Dad's very best friend. They were like brother and sister once." "Then why doesn't she come to visit?" Mel's asked, taking the box offered to her. "If she was such a good friend," Dad tugged on his ear. "We grew apart." He turned to Rory. "So she helped pick out the gifts." Tony could see the telltale signs of their telepathic conversation. He knew he'd be in for it later if Rory didn't smooth this over with the parents. "Yes, Rory and I wanted to get everyone something special." "Go on then, open them." Tony sat back down, wrapping an arm around Tricia's shoulder. Paper was ripped off packages and Amy and Sabrina squealed when they realized they had matching bracelets. "I love it. Thank you, thank you." Sabrina yelled as she launched herself at Rory. He, in return, wrapped her in a big hug. Mel's had offered a very rare, very sincere thank you and had asked Rory to help her put hers on. Mum and Dad beamed as they compared their new treasures. "Thank you both," Mum said quietly as Dad clipped the bracelet to her wrist. "Yes, thank you." Dad smiled and cuffed his watch to his own wrist. "These are so much more special given who helped pick them out. Did you like her?" "She was brilliant, Dad, absolutely brilliant," Tony said. "In fact, she helped me with another special gift." He turned to Tricia, who was still staring at the bracelet. She was still in awe of how much he doted on her sometimes. "Something very special for my very special girl." She turned to him, holding up the bracelet. "You got me this and I get to spend time with you and the family. I don't need anything else. You're spoiling me." "True, but this is something that I need for you to have." He shifted, pulling the ring out of his pocket, all while trying to calm his breathing. "Patricia, I love you more than anything and I can't live without you. Haven't wanted to since the day we met." He moved to a kneeling position on the floor. I need the two of us to be together forever." Slowly he opened the box, unable to hear anything except the creak of the hinge and the blood pounding through his ears. Now or never, he thought, looking up to meet her eyes. "Will you marry me?" For a long moment she said nothing, just sat there slack-jawed, looking completely stunned. Tony began to think that maybe he shouldn't have asked in front of his entire family. It would have saved him the embarrassment he was now feeling. He had started to pull back when Tricia threw herself into his arms, knocking him arse first onto the ground. Yes, Tony Tyler," she squealed as she pressed him into the floor, peppering his face with kisses. Yes. He eased them up into a sitting position and slipped the ring on her finger. "I told you she'd say yes," Rory called from across the room. Tony heard the oomph as Amy elbowed him in the stomach and the collective admonishments of Mel, Sabrina and Dad. No longer able to care about the world around him, Tony sealed his and Tricia's engagement with a kiss. A promise of forever, however long their forever turned out to be. May 2004. It wasn't that Rose was a stranger to jail cells. In fact, since she was 19. She had been in roughly 35 prison cells. Weekly imprisonment seemed to be par for the course as a companion for the Doctor. Sometimes they were thrown in dank cells for trying to overthrow dictators. Sometimes it was because the Doctor had failed to mention that hand-holding was an offense punishable by death. Either way, there was a thrill in the escape, not only from the cell but from the planet. Running all the way back to the TARDIS and laughing as the Doctor sent them into the vortex. It had been an exciting life. To be fair, there was also 1 or 2 3 times before she met the Doctor that she had been behind bars. Stupid things like underage drinking or drug use. Things that Rose Tyler would definitely like to forget that she had done. As she walked into the police station a few towns over from Leadworth, she thought of how ironic it was that she was now bailing out a young girl she thought of as a daughter. Well, bailing her out wasn't the ironic part. It was the fact that she was going to lecture Mel's on why she shouldn't do things that got her arrested in the first place. Pot, meat, kettle. "I'm here for Melody Jones, please," Rose said as she stepped up to the counter. "Are you her mother?" The police officer eyed her suspiciously. "She's a minor. I can't just release her to anyone, missus." Flashing a bright smile, she replied, "It's Dr. Williams actually, and no, I'm not her mother. Miss Jones is a ward of the state. As her court-appointed psychologist, I am allowed to act as her guardian for matters such as this." Rose handed over her ID and the appropriate documents. The officer thoroughly studied everything she handed him. "This looks to be in order, but you'll still have to pay her bail, 500 quid. Not enough in my opinion considering the destruction that heathen caused," he said after he finished his careful examination. "This should take care of it." Rose handed over the appropriate bills, trying desperately to ignore the officer's comments. With a sharp laugh, he counted the money. "I hope this little delinquent is worth it because I know that this money didn't come from the state." Rose had to bite down her growing anger, otherwise she'd be sharing a cell with Mel's. Only she'd be charged with assaulting a police officer. "I have worked with many troubled children in my career, and every single one of them is worth it. Now can you please go and get Melody?" Without another word, the man stood and walked into the back room. It was more than half an hour later that Mel sauntered out, throwing her jacket over her shoulder, the bracelet TenII and Rory had gotten her for Christmas firmly attached to her wrist. It was the only possession the girl seemed to care about. Rose didn't even look at her as she fell into step next to her on their way to the car. Not a single word was uttered by either of them until they were halfway back home. "Aren't you going to say anything? I mean, you're cool, Nan. That's why I called you, but I expected, yelling," Mel said as she leaned the seat back and propped a foot on the dashboard. Most everyone called Rose and James Mum and Dad. Mel's called them Nan and Pops. "Is that what you want me to do, Melody? Do you want me to yell and scream so that I will sound unreasonable? So that you can make me the bad guy in this?" Rose kept her eyes forward and her voice even. "I'm not doing any of those things. We'll talk like reasonable people when you're ready." Neither one said another word as Rose pulled the car up to a nearby chippy. Rose didn't even look back at Mel's as she stepped out and went to place an order. Mel's got out of the car and stomped bitterly over to a table. Without looking around, she played with the bracelet on her wrist. After a few minutes, Rose slid a basket of fish and chips in front of her. Still, neither said a word. After eating in silence, the young girl couldn't take it anymore. "Fine," Mel said, pushing aside her now empty basket. "You want me to talk? Let's talk." Rose stared right into Mel's eyes and remained silent, waiting for the younger girl to spill what she was going to spill. "It's not like what I did was so terrible. No one was using it at the time. I was going to bring it right back. You stole a bus, and then you drove it through the botanical gardens," Rose said calmly. Mel smiled. "It's just a bit of fun. They have insurance to cover the damage and no one got hurt." She shrugged. "No one got hurt, so that's what makes it okay, right? You could have easily hurt someone and it scares me how little you actually care." Rose took a deep breath. "You're 15, sweetie. You still have 3 years before you can go out on your own as an adult. Right now you are a ward of the state and your foster parents could send you away at any moment. Do you know what happens to teenagers who get sent back in for placement at your age? Most of them end up on the street. Look, I love you unconditionally, and I'm going to try and keep you here in Leadworth. But I need you to talk to me." Years and years of weekly therapy, and she still didn't understand why Mel's was so defiant. She claimed not to remember anything about her childhood before being placed into care. Rose believed her and thought that maybe those missing memories were what caused her to act out. Age is nothing but a number. Maybe I'm older than I look. Maybe that's something we have in common. Mel smirked once more. It was times like these that Rose knew there was a greater mystery behind this girl, knew that she wasn't everything that she seemed. Not only could no one see her timeline, but no one could feel her mentally either. Everyone, even humans, gave off a mental signature. It was like Mel's was blocking hers. Sometimes Rose got the feeling that the young woman was from their future. It wasn't that she was an unwelcome addition to their lives. In fact, it was the opposite. It was a familiar feeling like she was meant to be there. It was the same feeling Rose got around River's song. I'm going to regret sounding like my mother, but it needs to be said. Rose took another deep breath. If you keep going down this path, you're going to ruin your future. Mel's let out a long laugh. Oh Nan, my future has nothing to do with this stupid rock. So any criminal record I get here won't matter once the doctor comes back. Rose sputtered in disbelief. That is your big master plan, wait for the doctor. Yes, Mel said without hesitation. Everything will change when the doctor comes back, trust me. Don't you know you should never wait more than 5.5 hours for a man? Rose half muttered to herself. What? Mel's questioned. Oh sweetie, Rose sighed, attempting to brush past what she had let slip. Then you are going to be waiting forever. You can't just wait for things to happen in life. Especially when it comes to the doctor. Trust me, I have more than enough personal experience on that point. The second the words left her mouth, Rose groaned and Mel's grinned maniacally. So you've met him? I knew you must have, the way you encourage Amy. Rose clamped her jaw shut. Mel's rested her chin in her palm. If I promise never to tell Amy, will you at least confirm that you've met him? Fine, I've met the doctor. Rose hoped that Mel's kept her word. When I was a teenager, and he is just as amazing as Amelia thinks he is. But you can't wait around for him to rescue you. Sometimes you have to rescue yourself. And that young lady is all I'm going to say on the subject. Spoil sport. Mel's leaned back and crossed her arms. I never get to hear the good stories. Mirroring her body language, Rose leaned back. And you can never tell Amelia. She has to figure it out on her own, and then I hope she doesn't hate us. She'll forgive you, I know she will. She loves you too much not to. It's not like you don't deserve to be forgiven. There must be pretty powerful reasons why you can't tell her. Sometimes there are secrets that we just can't tell yet. I even have a few of my own. A look of shock flashed across Mel's face as if she knew she had said too much. For a long moment, Rose studied her face. She had always known that there was more to Mel's than met the eye. Their inability to adopt or even act as a foster family for her had always seemed suspicious, constructed. Maybe someone was hiding her here, somewhere she would be safe and taken care of. What kind of trouble could she really be in? She was very tempted to ask Mel's those questions right now. However, it was obvious that she didn't want to discuss whatever it was she was hiding. No doubt that one day she would. But for now, Rose would leave the mystery alone. Rose decided to go back to the topic at hand. Melody, I love you and I'm worried about you. Do you know why? Why? She asked quietly as if she really didn't know. Because once upon a time I used to be you. Rose had never told any of her children what she had been like before the doctor saved her. I was heading down the same path you were on. Got myself arrested a couple of times, drugs and drinking mostly. Thankfully, I never got caught stealing. Really? Miss Goody Two-Shoes was a rebel. Mel's laughed. It wasn't funny for my mum, just about killed her when I dropped out of school and moved out at 16 to move in with my low-life boyfriend. I think all I really wanted was attention, good, bad, whatever. I just wanted someone to see me and Jimmy did. I think that's what you want too. Her interest piqued. Mel's leaned forward. Was he at least hot? He wasn't bad-looking. Nothing on James, though. The girls giggled. Anyway, Jimmy Stone thought of himself as a musician, a true starving artist, and it was the both of us starving. I was waiting on him to make it big and to treat me the way I thought I should be treated. All I did was got me into some serious debt, had to move back in with my mum and work in a shop. I thought I was doomed to a life of nothingness, no future. I'm not putting all my stock in so loser guy like that. Mel's was still defiant. Rose shook her head. Doesn't matter, you're still waiting on someone else to give your life direction. You are worth so much more than that. Averting her eyes for the first time, Mel's mumbled, maybe, but you had Pops to guide you, to give you direction. Again, Rose shook her head. Pops showed me a better way and I took over from there. We were together for 2 years and he allowed me to see what I was capable of. Then we were separated. He thought it was impossible for us to be together again. I didn't, so I proved him wrong. But the kicker was, even if I had never seen him again, I would have been okay. I wouldn't be nearly as happy as I am now. On my own though, I would have survived. I didn't need people to pay attention to me to validate my self-worth anymore. So what you're saying is I need to be my own person and not rely on others for my self-esteem. Mel's grinned. God, you sound like my psychiatrist. Leaning over the table, Rose covered the girl's hand with hers. Sweetheart, I am your psychiatrist. Your friend and someone who loves you very, very much. Quietly, Mel's whispered, I love you too, Nan. You can't keep doing things like this, love. You can't wait around for other people to determine the course of your life. Rose squeezed her hand. There is so much out there in the world, in the universe, and you need to find your own place in it without the self-destructive behavior. Squeezing her hand once more, Rose smiled. Don't be afraid to take risks, to leap, and know that no matter what, I will always be there to catch you when you fall. Nan, I can't be perfect, she protested. No one is asking for perfect, I'm just asking you to not get kicked out of your foster home. The Carlsons are great people, they care about you, but they are reaching the end of their rope, if you push them much farther. Shaking her head, Mel's leaned back. They're nice, but they are not my family. You, Pops, Rory, Amy, Sabrina, Tony, and Tricia are the only family I need. We need you too. I wish we could adopt you, and you know we've tried. We can't, but that doesn't mean we don't want you. So just promise me, sweetie, promise me that you'll stop being so destructive. Deal. Mel's looked thoughtfully at Rose. Deal, I can't be perfect, but I will do my best to not get myself kicked out of the foster home. Beaming, Rose exclaimed, Great, I will do my best to smooth this over with your case worker and the Carlsons. Now let's go get some ice cream before I take you home. Can I still go dress shopping for Tricia's wedding next Saturday? Mel's actually looked sheepish. Raising an eyebrow, Rose said, If you are on your best behavior between now and then, now let's get out of here. Ice cream is calling my name. I don't deserve you, Nan, Mel said, linking their arms as the pair strode towards the car. Oh, sweetie, you deserve so much more than you will ever know. August 2004, Melody Rose Tyler Pond leaned against the post at the head of the trail in the early morning hours of the day. Today no one would call her Melody or even Mel's. It seemed like lifetimes since anyone had called her either of those names. No, today she would be River Song, mysterious time traveler, a far cry from beloved daughter, granddaughter, or niece. It had been years for her since she had seen her mother. Longer still since anyone had known exactly who she was. One day she knew she would show up expecting a warm welcome and would be met with people who had never met her. That day may very well kill her. Not today though, today everyone would know who she was because today she had been invited. Looking down at the psychic paper in her hand, River Song smiled. Sabrina's 12th birthday celebration, please come. Glenwood Springs, Colorado, August 20, 2004. Love, Rose, so here she waited. Knowing that her aunt had picked this place because her current best friend in school had come home raving about it after visiting her grandparents. Sabrina had told Mel's that the first thing she wanted to do if she ever got to visit was hike to the top of Hanging Lake. Oh, I see it, that's where the trail starts. Sabrina's voice drifted over the crowd and River fought back the emotions that threatened to bubble over. Letting her emotional shield slide back into place, she awaited the arrival of her family. Hello, sweeties, she called the moment everyone came into view. Sabrina broke out into a run and enveloped River in a tight hug. Auntie River, Mummy said she invited you. I'm so glad you could come. Isn't this place gorgeous? River smirked. She loved that her aunt called her Auntie River. It was a little ironic. Of course I made it, and yes, this place is lovely. Just wait until you get to the top though, it's spectacular. Ah yes, the lake was discovered in 1850. It is going to a tumultuous hike. James began to quote the encyclopedic facts about area, only pausing to give River a brief hug. It was always hardest to see her grandfather, her hero. Well, one of them at least. Knowing what his personal future held and that he would only learn who she was at the last possible moment almost broke her resolve at times. The lovebirds came next, Tony and Tricia, hand in hand. It warmed her hearts to know that they would always be this in love. Both hugged River and Tricia kissed her cheek. Rory came up and gave her a tight, lingering hug. I'm glad you're here. Even at his young age, she knew he felt the connection. Letting go of her far too soon, he quickly passed his older brother and future sister-in-law and caught up with his dad and sister. No need to tell you when we are in the timeline, Rose said, sweeping her granddaughter into a hug. Where have you come from? Spot of trouble on Gralp. Running for our lives, love the running. River smiled as the two fell into step heading up the mountain. She caught the slightly disappointed look on Rose's face. You were hoping I made it to Tony's wedding. Yeah, I mean you're part of the family and this is a big family event. Rose shrugged, trying to hide her disappointment. Just thought you might like to come. Even after years of secrets, it was still hard in moments like these not to spill the truth. She was there, just not as she was now, and it would be highly dangerous to cross her own timeline like that. Oh, I'm rubbish at weddings, especially my own. Just wait for that one. Laughing, Rose replied, I will add it to my calendar and hopefully you will attend more family events in the future. Rest assured, there are plenty of family events I'll be at in your future. And there are plenty of events you will be at in your future. Watch your step. Rose pointed out a dip in the path. Thanks. River took a wide step. I wish that were true, but I've known for a while that I'm running out of time. Don't say things like that. Rose snapped before softening. River, love, you know I can't say much, but you have many, many years left and then who knows what happens. Rose flinched slightly as if she knew more than she was saying. In the meantime, let's talk of something we can actually discuss without fear of damaging timelines. I had to bail one of my girls out of jail a few months back. She stole a bus and drove it through the damn botanical gardens. Can you believe it? At the casual mention of her childhood arrest, River's footing slipped and her nan caught her arm. Really? Was it Mel's? Probably wasn't her proudest moment. She had been full of anger then. As she had gotten older, she had grown more and more frustrated that she couldn't tell her family who she was, frustrated that she couldn't just live with them, and that she had to deal with that woman from Unit, and angry that she couldn't remember anything before she regenerated. Now, conversely, she was immensely grateful for that last one. Careful, yes, it was Mel's. She has so much potential, I just don't think she sees it yet. When I bailed her out, the guard had the audacity to ask if she was worth it. And you didn't slap him. River laughed on the outside, but on the inside she secretly thought that back then she may not have been worth it. I really wanted to, but what kind of role model would I be if I ended up in there right next to her? Rose laughed. Not a very good one. So I held my tongue and made it perfectly clear that she was more worth it than he was. I just hope that after our talk that day that she knows that. I'm sure a good stern talking to from you did her a world of good. She was very lucky to have you. In fact, Melody had been incredibly lucky to have escaped the silence and be raised around her parents and grandparents. If things hadn't worked out the way they did, she might never have gotten to know Pops. Of course, at the time she hadn't understood why Nan and Pops couldn't adopt her. Plenty of children were raised by their grandparents. Granted, it would have been a unique situation, since she knew who she was and yet they had no clue who she really was. Now, however, she completely understood. It was because of her mother that she couldn't have grown up in her grandparents' house. Amy had wanted nothing more than to be raised as a Williams, an official member of her surrogate family. With the death of her parents and her aunt's constant abandonment, James and Rose had filled her lonely life with love and acceptance. As selfish as it seemed, Amy would have been heartbroken to have been the only member of her family to be denied the chance to have been raised by the people she truly considered to be her mum and dad. Mel's hadn't had a bad childhood. Her foster parents had cared for her and had done their best to raise her. For the most part, she had been very happy growing up in Leadworth, aside from a felony or two. River offered Rose a helping hand over a boulder. Did you give her the make sure to rescue yourself and not to wait on others to do it for you speech? I love that speech. So I've given it to you then too. It's a good speech. True too, if I'd waited on the Doctor to break through the walls of the universe, I'd still be stuck there. Absolutely never wait on anyone, including the Doctor. Besides, if you had waited, you wouldn't have this beautiful family. Or me, River added to herself. Almost to the top now. And I hear the view is brilliant. For Earth, that is. Oh, don't knock the Earth. I was born here. My parents were born here. Rose feigned annoyance, sticking her tongue out at the other woman. Mine were too, dear. River winked. Her father may not be fully human, but he was in fact born on Sol 3. Just a few more feet and we're there. One last effort and they made it to the top. The magnificent, crystal clear, blue-green water fed by twin waterfalls came into view. It looked like it was suspended in midair. No wonder Sabrina had picked this place. Pops came over and wrapped an arm around Nan's waist. So family, what do you think? I want to go to the top of the waterfall. Can I go, please, Daddy? Sabrina begged. We'll, I don't know, could be dangerous, James teased. I'm not sure anyone else would want to brave it. Come on, Brina, we'll go with you. Tony tugged on both Trisha and Sabrina's arms. Danger is my middle name. No, it's not, Rory said, rolling his eyes. It's Ape. Tony ignored him and walked off with the girls. Don't fall in, James called after them. This is a delicate ecosystem and oils off your human skin can damage the balance. Several people nearby gave him sardonic looks. Rose and River giggled and James looked confused. What, really, Dad, your human skin? Rory asked, barely able to contain his own laughter. Saying things like that make you sound a bit, well, alien. But I am an owl, oh right. James dropped his voice at the realization. It's still true though, oils on the skin can upset. Rose raised an eyebrow. Oh, never mind. James pulled Rose to the overlook railing, Rory and River trailing behind. It really is a spectacular view, he whispered into his wife's ear. Louder, for the benefit of his son and his yet unknown granddaughter, he said, a brilliant place to spend a day with the family. Just wish everyone could be here. Obviously he was thinking about the two girls back in Leadworth. One who called him Dad, the other who called him Pops. River laid a hand on his arm. One day you'll be able to show them the universe. And trust me, both of them will forgive you for not being able to tell them who you are. Can't tell you more than that, you know, spoilers. Thanks, River, it's nice to know that from someone who has actually lived it. He took in a deep breath. Anyway, beautiful day, baby girl's birthday, lots of fun things to do. Thought we would head back into town after this. Do lunch and then the hot springs pool or maybe the adventure park. His eyes sparkled at the thought of roller coasters that jutted out over the side of a mountain. Sounds like a plan to me, Rose said, giving him a squeeze. Nan always worried that he took too much responsibility on himself. As a part-time lord, part-human Mercrises, he felt the weight of the universe and his extended family on his shoulders. She had good cause to worry about her husband, both of them. River shook her head to clear it. Just enjoy the day, she told herself. Try not to think about their future or yours. A day with her family, a day without running. Not that she didn't love the running, but those days were few and far between now. A genuine smile lit River's face as she decided to savor the day. Despite what Rose said, she never knew which one would be her last. The rest of the day passed far too quickly. After another hour spent exploring the area around the lake, the family headed down. This time Sabrina walked with River. The birthday girl told her all about her life and friends back home. The two of them chatted away about the woes of a preteen just like they were the best of friends. Because of course they were best friends no matter when in their timelines they met. Back in town they ate a leisurely birthday lunch, complete with the mandatory embarrassing round of happy birthday, followed by a few hours at the hot springs pool. Unfortunately, a late-day thunderstorm derailed plans of roller coasters on the side of a mountain. All in all, though, it was a near-perfect day. Later that night, River sat lazily dragging her feet through the fountain outside the hotel, staring at the stars. She felt Rory's presence before she saw him, so was unsurprised when he sat down next to her. For the longest time, neither said anything. They both simply enjoyed the cool water on their legs and the clear view of the night sky. Finally, River broke the silence. "Something on your mind, sweetie?" It was another minute before he answered. "Who are you really? You never talk about a family or your parents, and don't give me the whole spoilers line. If you give up too much, I can simply lock away the memory," Rory said, nudging her with his shoulder. "I wish I could tell you, but I'd risk too much," River replied, shaking her head. "I will tell you one thing though." "What's that?" His expression was suddenly curious. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm so much more than you could ever imagine," she thought. "Who do I think you are?" River song. He teased. "You, Rory Tyler, think I'm your sister, or at least your half-sister, the daughter of the fully Time Lord Doctor and your mother. Rest assured, I am the daughter of neither." More than anything, she wanted to tell him that she was his little girl. But even if he buried the memory, it could still affect his choices, and if he changed one aspect, both their pasts were at stake. For the sake of her existence, she kept silent, just as she always did. "But you're still a time lady, don't look at me like that," Rory said, looking at her shocked expression intently. "You are able to hide not only your timeline, but your telepathic signature as well." He leaned in and let the penny drop. "And only one Time Lord escaped the Time War. That means," River cut him off before he could say anything else. "That means I am descended from the Doctor, and you have already figured out too much. Please, Rory, don't push any harder. You cannot know the truth, not yet. Promise me you won't bring this up again, at least until the time comes that I can tell you the truth." For a long moment, Rory studied her. She really wished she could drop her telepathic shields and hear what he was thinking. Finally, he spoke. "For the sake of your timeline, I promise not to bring it up again. But whether or not we're brother and sister, whether you're a Time Lord or not, we are family, River. And when the time comes, a time when you think it's really the end, just know that I will save you." "You can't say things like that." Although her hearts leapt at the sentiment, she had to stop him before he gave away too much. "Besides, I don't wait on anyone to save me. Not even you. You can always count on me, always, and like I said before, you can block this memory if it becomes too much, but you need to know this." He swallowed hard. "When the time comes and you think it's the end, truly the end, it isn't. I will find a way to save you. Always there to catch me when I fall." River smirked. The Tylers were simply put the heroes of the universe, and she was lucky enough to count herself among them. "I will remember, I promise." Rory. Both of them turned as they heard James call out to them. "It's getting late, time to head to bed." "Coming, Dad," he yelled before turning back to River. 15 years old and he still treats me like a little kid sometimes." Grumbling, he made his way back to the hotel but stopped halfway. He turned around, waved, and yelled, "Night, River." Smiling, she raised a hand to wave back and said in low voice, "Good night, Daddy."